Every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, July 14th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Alex Pareene, contributing editor at The New Republic, co-host of the Politics of Everything podcast. Then actor and SAG-AFTRA member Andrew Leeds on the SAG-AFTRA strike. And then Andy Kindler from andykindler.com on just generally how he strikes. I don't know what that means. Also on the program today, Republicans forced nearly every House Democrat to vote against a nearly $900 budget aimed at killing people.
$900 billion.
$900 billion.
You want to talk $900? That's our negotiation starting point, baby.
Just a bizarre show in the House. Republicans turned the NDAA on its head over wokeism. 160,000 SAG-AFTRA workers strike against movie and TV producers. Biden administration forgives $39 billion in student debt for over 800,000 borrowers. And we're number one. U.S. hits a record, deadliest 6 months of mass shootings in our history. Joe Manchin's going to vote against acting Labor Secretary Julie Su. New York State ordered to redraw House maps could lead up to 6 Democratic pickups in the 2024 House elections. Vermont braces for more rain. Texas sweltering in heat. Monsoon kills over 100 in northern India. And the bad news keeps on coming for Ron DeSantis. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is Friday, Casual Friday.
Ron debacle.
And it's still sweltering hot in this studio. This is like a redux of summer 2022.
That's
oh my God.
Ron's laugh.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Did you identify right away?
I was looking around. I thought it was Matt. The good news is we have somebody coming in to service the air conditioner at this evening, so I'm going to be staying in the office a little bit late. The bad news is there is about no chance that will be fixed.
I'm not getting my hopes up.
Heard that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is like UFOs.
Exactly. Keep getting teased here.
I'll believe it when I feel it.
Full disclosure, I am a member of SAG-AFTRA. Under union rules, I can work here. This show does not have a theatrical or television contract. However, starting tonight at midnight, I will not be able to perform services on something like Bob's Burgers or any other show. Of course, I'll be spending a lot of time working through this with my friend Tim Poole, who coaches me on my entertainment career when I have roadblocks or any obstacles.
Yeah.
He's sort of like a life coach for me. And we have a rap session. And
he's a very wise guy.
Yeah, we have a rap session about it. And I come out the other end feeling a lot more confident. But yesterday at 3 p.m., I believe it was, Eastern time, maybe 1 p.m., I can't remember exactly. I watched it. The SAG-AFTRA, and just a reminder, SAG and AFTRA merged, I think it was now 6-7 years ago. I can't remember. They've been trying to do this for a long time. I was a member of both AFTRA and SAG, and now I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. I was formerly a member of the WGA, but I haven't written script in over 11 years. So just full disclosure on that. I don't know why anybody would care, frankly. It wouldn't change my opinion of it whatsoever.
Right.
But with that said, this is the first time that SAG-AFTRA has struck at the same time as the writers in 60, I think more than 60
Since
years.
1960.
And I'm trying to do the math, 63 years.
Yeah.
And there was a SAG strike in, I think it was 86, and that lasted not even a day. So it officially starts tonight at 12 a.m. This is a big deal. And we'll talk a little bit about this with Andrew Leeds, but we're going to talk about it more as it goes on because there's a lot to talk about in the context of this. But talks essentially broke down. SAG-AFTRA extended for 12 days. There's a lot of speculation that the reason why the producers wanted to do this was not to actually negotiate more because they didn't seem to make any effort over that time, but rather because there were some summer blockbusters out and SAG-AFTRA actors cannot go on a promotional tour once we strike.
Yeah.
And so you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that the producers want to squeeze out. As far as I can tell, they didn't want to even meet during that time. At the last hour, they called for a federal mediator, again, probably to squeeze out another week's worth of promos. That's not going to happen. And there were two people who basically spoke. One was Fran Drescher. She is the SAG-AFTRA president. And another guy, and she was obviously an actress, or she still is. I mean, she's a working actor, but she was most known for The Nanny. And then another guy named Duncan Crabtree Ireland. He is the SAG-AFTRA director. He was never an actor, as far as I know. But they were asked a bunch of questions. We got one clip here of Crabtree Ireland explaining what one of the major issues. The really big issues are residual payments and then in the final analysis, this AI stuff. But the residual payments we'll talk more about later. But this is just fascinating. It gives you a sense of like what the actors are protecting here. Listen to this. It's amazing that this was even put on the table by the producers.
But this groundbreaking AI proposal that they gave us yesterday, in that groundbreaking AI proposal, they proposed that our background performers should be able to be scanned, get paid for 1 day's pay, and their company should own that scan, their image, their likeness, and should be able to use it for the rest of eternity in any project they want with no consent and no compensation. So if you think that's a groundbreaking proposal, I suggest you think again.
All right, and the important thing about this, I mean, aside from it just being creepy as F, I mean, understand if you're a background worker, there are some people who can make a living on it. I mean, barely, squeak by as a second job. But it gives people an opportunity to sort of like get a sense of what it is to be on a movie set or a TV set, and as a decent second job, and also can help you get over the hump for the $24,000 a year you need to qualify for healthcare. But here's the thing is that, we'll hear a lot about how like the actors are keeping from a lot of people on the set from working, same with the writers, et cetera, et cetera. Understand that the amount of the set that is dedicated to the background is massive. So not just organizing background actors, but creating the background. What that proposal tells me is at the very least, the producers plan sometime in the future to CGI everything in the background. And they want to use the likenesses, and basically it will just be a matter of time. They're going to create enough of a bank of background actors where they'll never have to shoot any type of location. Everything will be in a studio in front of a green screen, And that's what they're
Yuck.
looking for ultimately. And that means not just that background actors aren't going to get work. The grips, the keys, the ADs, the PAs, the location scouts, everybody associated with making a major production in that way would be taken out of the picture.
Yeah.
And so this is just, I mean, it really is an astonishing thing to put out there and leave on the table, you know, when they walk away from the thing. I mean, it just basically shows, you know, the performance that the producers are doing.
The priorities that they have. I mean, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, Ashley Nicole Black, who does a voice on Bob's Burgers, she's also a writer. So this is an attempt to destroy a union, make every background actor's career one day long, and you also remove a large group of actors from the union and pension and healthcare.
Without a doubt.
And also, this was what we've been saying is the thing that raises most alarm bells about the promulgation or the growth of AI, which is it as an anti-labor practice, as opposed to like, oh, it's going to become some dystopian, hellish future right away. I think the most realistic threat is that it's going to be used to circumvent and cut back on labor for a variety of industries. This one's just like as you say, a creepy example of it.
Yeah. And also, once they open the door to that type of dynamic, we own your image in perpetuity. And we can put it in any context.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, like, who do they keep expanding into that circle?
Oh, look, Robin Williams is in the new Marvel Universe movie.
I mean, that was a 30 Rock plot, Seinfeld vision, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're going to be talking to Alex Pareene a little bit about that and more in a moment. Just a couple of words from our sponsors. I've talked about HelloFresh in the past. I've been using them now 6-9 months. I can't tell. Maybe a little longer, maybe a little less. I can't remember. But a while back, I had used other like food delivery ingredient services. But the problem was they were just a little bit too involved. And HelloFresh has basically, for me, found my sweet spot, which is I can make great food for my kids, home cooked meal. Doesn't take me much time. And that's what they have in the copy, actually. It gives you free time and fresh, tasty food. So what HelloFresh does is they send you a box full of ingredients with a recipe. I also like the fact that they put them in discrete bags because then I can figure it out. It's very quick. Want to thank HelloFresh for supporting the show. And you can go to HelloFresh.com/majority50. Use the code majority50 for 50% off plus free shipping. They have pre-proportioned ingredients, cuts down on food waste, step-by-step instructions, and they have a whole range of stuff like bratwurst, key lime pie. But for me, the ones that I love are called like the one pan dishes. And there were two that I've had. One was like bean quesadillas, which took the quesadilla to a totally another level. And then these like pork tacos. They're both sweet and sour. They both like took me maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes. One pan.
wow.
Which means no cleaning or very limited. But I've also made like a quick one, noodles with shrimp, like a sesame noodles with shrimp. I mean, it's good, tasty food, and it's super easy. The ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days for quality you can taste rather. HelloFresh also significantly cheaper than takeout, and I think if I factor in like the waste that I have buying at a grocery store. They got deliveries featuring quality proteins, fresh produce. They also have many, many different meal plans for different lifestyles. Go to HelloFresh.com/majority50. Use the code majority50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Also, my favorite sponsor, Sunset Lake Sebede.com. Remember, they are a majority-owned company. They pay 20% minimum wage. All the hemp they grow I should say, all of their products is hemp that they grow. They don't get it from somebody else, so they know exactly what happens with it. They don't use pesticides. They use integrated pest management. All of their stuff is third-party tested to ensure quality, and they put those results on their website or when they send it to you. Right now, they're having a big sale on all their tinctures. They got tinctures with melatonin. They got tinctures in 3 different flavors. They got tinctures in like 3 or 4 different concentrations. The tinctures are great to quickly mellow out, to help you go to sleep. If you use the coupon code TINCTURE at checkout, you will get 35% off. And they've decided, they just let us know, 10% of the proceeds from the sale will go to Vermont Flood Response and Recovery Fund 2023. A lot of farms got hit. This is what they do. These guys have donated literally tens of thousands of dollars to strike funds, to carceral reform, to refugee resettlement, to food pantries, on and on and on. And we got to talk about this with Julie, but I think we're going to try and at least match part of this. Now is a great time to stock up. Visit sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code TINCTURE at checkout. This deal ends at the end of the weekend, Monday night, July 17th. So use the coupon code TINCTURE, and you will get 35% off of all of their tinctures. Also, they have pet tinctures. Great for dogs. So check it out. Use the coupon code TINCTURE. This will be in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, quick break, and then we'll go to Alex Pareene. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. It is Casual Friday on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Alex Pareene, the contributing editor at the New Republic, co-host of the Politics of Everything podcast. What else are you doing these days?
I have been doing some work at Defector, the subscribers, sports and culture website that I recommend you check out. And
amazing site.
To. Yeah. And I have some other stuff cooking that I can share another time.
Ooh. Or should I be playing the breaking news story?
You can save it. Save it. For
All right,
later.
we'll save it. That's exciting. I get the sense that something's going on. I can tell. Look at you, like you're clean shaven. You got a haircut. Something's happening. Something's happening.
Seems a little backhanded, Sam. But that's all right.
No. I mean, look at me.
I think you look fine, Sam.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I was fishing for that. All right, let's start with this because I want to start with the inflation numbers because, to my mind, something sort of like amazing is happening, and the way that amazing may be overstated, but you and I have been doing this for a long time and been watching sort of like this conventional wisdom about, and not even conventional wisdom. This was sold to us like it was the theory of gravity, or the law of gravity, I should say. Yeah. That you could not get so-called full employment. You could not even get close to full employment. That the natural rate of unemployment had to be like 6 or 7%. Yeah. And if it wasn't, then we would have all sorts of problems with inflation and Weimar Germany. And then we were also told that you can't print money and give it to people because if you do that, we turn into Weimar Germany.
Right.
And it seems to me that we have basically done both those things. Yeah. And we were told by Larry Summers, as he's sitting in the Bahamas, and the palm trees swaying in the background, we another 1 million people need to lose their jobs for inflation to come down. And as of this month, inflation is down 2 percentage points year over year from where it was just like not even 6 months ago.
Right.
And it becomes clearer and clearer that this was not a function of the money that was spent to help people, and that we don't have to punish labor. I mean, it becomes so obvious, and then all of a sudden nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah. No, I know. That's one of the funny things about the conversation here is and I think, like, in addition to that sort of what was presented to us as an iron law of economics that you described, where if we got employment too high, runaway inflation would result. There were all these inflation hawks who spent the better part of 15, 20 years saying inflation's right around the corner, and it just kept not happening. And then when it finally did happen, they felt very vindicated, even though they had been predicting it for years and with no results. But those same people were the ones who said, when inflation finally came back, the only way to stop this is by crushing labor. I mean, that's what Larry Summers and a ton of mainstream economists were saying, is we're not going to get to the other side of this unless we basically cause a recession, or at the very least punish labor. And they were adamant that was like, that's what the economics 101 says. We're not going to bring inflation down as long as the job market remains hot. And that has turned out to be proven false by reality. And there have been very few mea culpas from the people who've been saying that. It's not like Larry Summers is going back on TV and saying, hey, it turns out I was wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So there's, I think that there are a few people, and I think I even saw, Joe Wiesenthal was saying this, the Odd Lots host. People crediting the Fed for managing this entire situation. They can't even point to a sort of causal mechanism by which the rate hikes led to this. It's like the rate hikes happened and they didn't crush the job market, which is great, but it still is not really clear what the path was from that to inflation coming down.
Yeah,
so I think
I saw somebody said, walk me through this. The Fed raises rates and the price of eggs halves in the context of 2 or 3 months.
Right.
What's going on here?
Yeah. How is that? What's the macroeconomic theory there? Yeah, it's really unclear. And let's be clear. When people say when we say
like the Fed is looking to attack labor. What we're really saying is the Fed is looking to make some people incapable of buying things, right? Like lose their job, have no money. And that's the way we'll tap the brakes on this economy. I mean, I think there's an argument that like raising interest rates to some extent sort of shook out like some of the absolute fever dreams that were happening in big tech. Right. And slowed the party going on there. That they weren't operating on real business. It was just, but the primary goal was to disempower labor, and that seems to me to have been the thing. And inflation was almost like the cover for that, or because here's something I found really encouraging. Lael Brainerd, who is the new National Economic Council director, just gave a big speech at, I guess, the New York Economics Club or whatever it is, where they all, and I want to read a quote from this. It's really fascinating to see someone who is now in this type of position sort of saying this. I mean, she really says it in an interesting language. While declines in energy and food prices have been important in bringing overall inflation back down, core inflation is also declining. Annual core CPI inflation has now fallen as projected to decline further as rents decelerate. The closely watched, and really rents and housing are the ones that like are really driving this to a large extent.
Absolutely.
The closely watched category of core non-housing services CPI has run at an annualized rate of 3.3% over the last 6 months, close to the 3.2% average from the 3 decades before the pandemic. So, when you take out not housing, now, of course, like people's lived experience, you can't do that. But but we're trying to find the source of inflation here. It's not the we're running basically average. It will be, and this is the big quote, it will be important for corporations to continue to bring their markups back down after having raised them to unusually elevated levels over the past 2 years, which would help in reducing inflation. The markups associated with price spirals, with final goods prices going up by more than input prices, should unwind if customers become more price sensitive and firms compete more intensely for customers. I mean, if anything, the money, the wage gains that have been made at the bottom end of the wage end, over the past couple of years, and any of the money that maybe people paid off some of their bills, although credit debt is way up there again.
Yeah.
All that did was allow corporations to raise their prices and have people go for 12, 24 months or whatever it was, say like, I'm going to buy it. But when she says it was greater than inputs, what she's saying is price gouging.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which, again, was for some reason a very controversial topic in economics land, where like the only thing you can blame inflation on for a lot of those people is the so-called wage price spiral, where it's
I mean, at first they essentially said that we were conspiracy theorists on the left for engaging in it, and then all of a sudden a year later it's greedflation might be a real thing. Of course,
Yeah, and the idea that something other than labor bargaining for larger wages that could cause inflation. I mean, you just weren't allowed to say it, and now it's now you're allowed to say it in that sort of economic speak, apparently. But yeah, I mean the fact is it's now accepted finally that the pricing power of major corporations was a thing driving inflation for the last few years.
And let's be clear, part of it may have been that the people had less sensitivity to prices coming out of COVID.
Right.
But the other part of it is that like we have such concentration of corporations that you didn't really have much of a choice. If you wanted this stuff, and so you dealt with it. I mean, again, I have no doubt that there is a small element of our inflation which is driven by some measure of wage increases. But the idea that logistics was not a big chunk of this is just absurd when you had like, you know, full regions of China shutting down for a month at a time or something, and shipping containers all over the place. And then you had the bird flu with the chickens. And then and now it's clear the last element is corporations need to like stop getting extraordinary over the top profits.
Yeah, right.
It's like Hurricane Sandy. Like, I'm selling, you know, balls of water for $15 a pop. I mean, it's just, you know.
Right. And then, but I think, you know, part of it's too that it was convenient for many years to just let the Fed handle policy related to inflation, right? But what that leads to is like the Fed has very few tools that it can use. One, and the major one is raising interest rates, which, as we've discussed, can lead to higher unemployment. Because the way to capture back the way to fight inflation in the event that it's driven by excessive corporate price gouging and excessive corporate profits would be to tax them. But the Fed obviously can't raise corporate taxes. So it's sort of an example of where you end up when you sort of abdicated responsibility for managing the economy because you've decided it's apolitical and that the technocrats should be in charge. But if you just sort of cede that power to the Fed, this is kind of where you end up.
And I would add that taxation not the only arrow in the quiver for the Biden administration. Now, obviously, you need Joe Manchin to raise taxes, and he's not going to do it. But Richard Nixon showed that the president has the authority to institute price controls.
That's right. Yeah.
And even I think the threat of Biden taking that seriously would have had these corporations snapping back a lot quicker with this stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And especially because, you know, it's exactly what we're discussing, right? These price increases were not related to the cost of inputs. They were just completely arbitrary or designed to juice as much profit as they could. And I think you're totally right. Like, given the credible threat of actual price controls, which again were a normal part of the inflation fighting toolkit for years up until the 80s, basically. Given the threat of that, I think we would have seen those price increases clawed back.
And this is the thing too. We don't have these conversations anymore about Green Lanternism, in the way that we did. And that, for people who want to know, like, when anyone, you know, left of center said the president, you know, Obama should do this or that, then there would usually like be some like centrist, pundits who would say like, these poor kids don't understand the president has limitations and this and that. The reason why we're seeing this rollback, I think we're going to of corporate profits, is because there has been a narrative. The reason why we saw it in the first place, it was because there was a narrative that we can get away with this. I mean, I've talked to some, I know some people in business, in big corporations, and they're like, without a doubt, we just saw that we could get away with it, and so we did it. And because everybody had this built-in excuse of the pandemic, and so we could raise prices, even though there was really no justification other than us wanting more profits. The fact that a narrative can work that way, indicates that a narrative can work the other way. And the president come out and said, "Going to be honest, we're contemplating price controls because we think that the inputs and the expense, the cost of this stuff is misaligned." At the very least, that would have gotten the public to focus on that and been a lot less tolerant of these of these increases. At the very least, but I think it would have. And so, this is a perfect example of like what the bully pulpit really can do.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. Yeah. And it's not the exact same thing, but when we were talking about stripping, we measure core inflation by stripping out energy prices, but like one of the things the president did do was just unleash a bunch of oil on the market to bring the price down, which is like economically the same idea we're talking about here, right? Like if that's driving inflation, I have the power to bring those prices down by just putting more oil on the market, and price controls would operate in a really similar way.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the defense bill.
Yeah.
You can't talk about the defense bill without saying it's grotesque.
Yeah.
I mean, $86 billion. We've had multiple years in a row of Congress providing more for this budget than even the Pentagon asked for.
Yeah. The increase from 2020 to 2021 was well over what the annual cost for a college for all bill would be. Well over just the increase. Just to give people a sense of like what is possible with these increases on a year-to-year basis to fund.
And it's unclear to me exactly, how exponential the threat has become to us as a nation that would justify this.
Right.
But with that said, it's, I would love to tout the fact that almost every Democrat voted against this bill and say like they're doing it. But how bizarre is this that we have almost $1 trillion, 900 million almost, dedicated, right, to killing people? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it all is. It's support staff for people who are killing people.
Yeah.
And yet, the Republicans are enraged that our military provides transportation if some military members are living in a state that has banned abortion.
Yes.
And of course, also is supporting, it's also woke insofar as like there's a couple of trans soldiers.
Yeah, I think there was some like DEI training or something in there too, right? It was like, yeah.
And this is right after the Supreme Court said affirmative action bad except for the military.
Except for the military academies, right? Where like they're like, those are actually important. So
it's
I mean, it's the entire thing, like top to bottom. The entire thing is absurd because it's so. I mean, again, a few years ago, I would have been shocked to hear that nearly every Democrat voted against the defense authorization bill. That would have been a shocking thing to hear.
A great thing.
Yeah, I would have been like, wow, like we finally did it. We we finally won. But no, it's the fact that it was for this sort of absurd and grotesque reason is, I mean, I don't know. It's just very strange.
It's such a strange. It's this so weird. I mean, I'm happy they voted against it.
Yeah,
I think they should. But I don't know what is more bizarre about this, that the Democrats, don't feel. They're not worried about going out on the campaign trail and not having supported the defense budget, which is, I think, a good sign, I guess.
Yeah.
Or that like Republicans are basing their whole sort of like thing on they're going that deep into abortion, and like they have become. It is amazing.
No, I mean, that's
the playing field that they're working on is so narrow, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think that it really does speak to where the Republican Party is now. I think that like this was a bipartisan thing up until very recently, even up through the Trump years, where everything became much more heightened and divisive. The defense authorization bill was still a bipartisan thing, and threatening it by larding it up with this anti-abortion, anti-LGBT, anti-woke stuff is just not something the party even would have done just a few years ago, because there was just so much agreement among everyone on everything else included in it. And I think it does speak to where Democrats think the politics of this are. That I think their message is going to be, Republicans are trying to sabotage the defense bill with all of this culture war stuff, and which makes them unafraid to vote against it, like thinking that they have the upper hand on this. But it again, like, just speaks to a party on the Republican side that has just no politics except anti-woke politics. Like, and that's it.
And it's fascinating because that politics, so many of those people who voted for it are from red districts, where they are running exclusively in the primary, right? Like, even if they don't have anybody running, so it's just total primary politics for them, and really, it's all about the anti-wokeism. I don't know how telling this is, but there was this Axios focus group in Minnesota about DeSantis, and all of the voters. There were 13 Minnesotans. I mean, this is not, this is a focus group, so it just gives you sort of like some ideas. But there were 9 identified as independent, 3 as Republican, 1 as Democrat. And, independents generally say, like, I'm an independent, and they tend to vote Republican.
Like,
that's been my experience, but from what I've seen from some of the data. There were 2 online focus groups done, I guess, just earlier this week. They voted for Trump in 2016, Biden in 2020. And so they were testing out DeSantis. And they said no one said they were more likely to vote for DeSantis after being shown his anti-LGBTQ online video.
Yeah.
No one. All but 3, that means 10 of them, described the video as troubling.
Oh, God.
4 voters admitted they simply didn't know enough about the governor to offer opinion, but the rest who knew him didn't like him.
Go on.
Now, like, Minnesota has been been purpley. And one person said the video makes it seem like DeSantis is proud to be anti-trans. Another was disturbed by what he saw as pure hate from DeSantis towards the LGBTQ community. Some said that DeSantis is out of step with the country. In today's day, we are more open than we have ever been. To be that far on the other side of it, I think, is just kind of ridiculous. I mean, none of these people are talking like they're not trans activists. They're not using any type of language of people who talk about this. They're just going like, 7 of the 13 voters said they ditch Biden in favor of a generic, middle-aged, white male Republican governor with mainstream conservative views. But that guy, if that guy exists,
could not get through
a Republican primary now.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And that's the situation that the GOP finds itself in. And I think, like, they are so up their own ass, like the DeSantis campaign. This is, everyone has sort of noted this at this point, but they're the most online campaign in, like, ever. Like, they're run by and run for incredibly online far right conservatives. And there's a funny sort of mistake that I think, like, both, like, far right conservatives and a lot of centrists make, which is to just assume that quote unquote normal people are as sort of troglodytic and backwards as these right wingers. But I mean, that's actually not true. Like, most people are fairly decent, even if they're not necessarily, like, incredibly liberal or incredibly tolerant. And, like, they are.
If you can go from you can go from Trump to Biden, or from Obama to Trump, and it's a small cohort of people in the country.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a small cohort of, but if they're like, considered normal people have no interest in this stuff.
No, exactly. And they're turned off by it, right? Like, even if, I mean, even if they themselves are, like, uncomfortable with the idea of trans people, like, they don't want to be affirmative of hate, like, that's unappealing to most people, to, like, openly pick hate. they want some deniability, and
Yes.
DeSantis does not offer you deniability.
And what's also interesting, if you pair this and there was, I guess, a Pew study that came out this week that said that Republican turnout in 2022 was actually higher than Democratic turnout, despite the fact that the Democrats, picked up a seat in the Senate, despite the fact that they held their own more or less in the House. I mean, they lost a little bit.
Yeah.
That is indicative of this thing, like they're motivating their voters,
Yeah.
but they already won those seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point. It's like, DeSantis is motivating everybody who likes him in Florida, but they already like him in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I guess it's sort of the GOP version of the we just got to rally our base argument here, but it's totally right that it ends up with, I think, in the national context, a ton of wasted votes in places that were going to be Republican anyway, with no crossover appeal. Basically.
Exactly. And the Democrats, the lesson I think from the 2022 thing is you got to motivate the base more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people who came out in 2018 were not there.
Well,
Now,
there's a vacuum, right? Because I feel like the Republicans have kind of reached some sort of, they've hit a wall on just turning out their base. They were incredibly successful at winning electorally when that was their strategy for a long time. And I think Trump's chaos and insanity is a problem for that, because you don't have enough people on the margins to take you over the top, like independents and people like that, who will turn out, that are going to supplement the base turnout. Like they need to, in some way, and I don't think it's going to happen for them in the immediate, find a way to get back some of those people in the middle, which is something that they never really need to do up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Emma, that's right, and I think that for many, many years now, especially in the context of like midterms, we've heard about how Republicans just turn out in far greater numbers, consistently. They turn out far more consistently than Democratic voters. And I think, if anything, in the last couple cycles, that there's been some evidence that Democrats are beginning to turn out more consistently at higher numbers. But on the Republican side, I think what that led to is hitting the wall, like you say. They can't get more juice out of the electorate they've been winning with. Like, they have already reached the maximum with their current electorate. And so everything sort of depends on depressing the other side, or gerrymandering and like games like that.
And let me just add one more thing though to that too, just to connect it with the transphobia of the DeSantis campaign. There's a strategy, if the Democrats were forward facing, to actually be better trans allies, because the Republican Party already have all those people, as you say. Gen Z is as pro-trans, pro-LGBTQ in general as anybody, and they're also the least likely to have the highest voting turnout numbers. The Democrats would be wise to actually invest in these really young voters to get them to turn out. It could make a difference in some states, but.
Well, I think the key here, from what I can see, seems to be that the Republicans will keep bringing out their base, but like you say, they've exhausted what they can do, and in the process of doing that, they are alienating these people that almost Democrats don't even need to necessarily go after,
right.
Unless they want to win midterms, maybe a little bit more. But they don't need to necessarily go after them in the context of a presidential race, because those people are going to come out, and the Republicans are going to are doing the work of the negative partisanship.
Right.
And the thing is, they can't change. They can't change as a party now. The Republicans can't, because too many of them are rewarded. Their incentive structure is not to attract those people. We have polarized, the sorting has happened. Yeah. And you're in, so many of these Republicans are in blood red districts that there is no value to them to do anything other than to sort of like out, Marjorie Taylor Greene or Boebert, their next person. And that I don't see how that cycle stops.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't, and I mean it's supported, like, or it is propped up by our political system generally, which sort of doesn't allow for a party to have a complete like wipeout, you know, like at this point, like,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's not a way out, especially because, as I have been saying for a few years now, normally you would say that they would sort of age out of it, but in the Republican Party now, the youngest people are the most extreme. The ones coming up are incredibly extreme. So it's hard to even see how they sort of age out of it, except in the sense of a large portion of their base dying off over the next decade or two.
Well, I think that's going to happen.
Well, right. Yeah, that is going to happen. But yeah.
In the meantime, we should just touch on this, what's happening in New York State, because for all, you know, the Democrats lost the House by, what was it? I think 12 it ended up being ultimately in 2022. A lot of those came from New York and from California, in part because there was no, Democrats are not necessarily have figured out how to drive voters there unless Democrats are out voting against the potential Republican rule. And that's not happening in New York and California. So nobody was like afraid of like an abortion ban or something to that effect. And all the centrists muddled the message by talking about crime, which, like inflation, has been dropping like a rock, because we were in a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. But New York State, there's a chance for like 3 or 4, maybe 6 seats to be picked up in 2024 just by redrawing the maps. Have you been following this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit, and but the latest court decision was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, I've been following it a little bit.
All right, well, we should be clear. The latest court decision, the Democrats went back and argued that we should remind people what happened last time.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right, you walk them through that.
If I remember the timeline correctly, in New York, basically we had independent redistricting commission that was supposed to draw the congressional maps, but then the state legislature would approve them or not, and then it would get basically kicked back to the legislature if they didn't like the commission's maps. And then what happened in New York was, because of a prior lawsuit, a judge actually then kicked it to a random independent expert.
Right. Well, we should be clear. The commission deadlocked.
Yeah, the commission deadlocked.
And then it went to the legislature to draw the maps.
And the legislature
and they went to town.
Yes, they really did.
They like wanted to wipe out Staten Island.
Yeah, no, it was actually a pretty funny map. Yeah, so the Democratic legislature, and it was actually unexpected, right? And because New York is a state where Democrats have
rarely press advantage.
Rarely press that sort of advantage. But they went full on maximize the number of Democratic seats that you can. And then that's when a judge kicked it to another guy, basically just an independent expert, to draw quote unquote fairer maps. And those are what led in part to Democrats underperforming here in New York.
And so the Democratic Party went back to the court and said that was supposed to be a temporary fix. You got to give the commission another crack at it.
Yep.
And the theory, everybody seems to understand what's going to happen. The commission is going to deadlock again.
Yeah.
It's going to go to the New York State legislature, and this time, instead of going to town, they're going to go to the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it a little bit more reasonable, but a little bit more reasonable, instead of picking up 13 seats or whatever it is that their first map
they were
was,
trying to do before. Yeah.
It's going to be, it could be 5, could be 6, could be 4, somewhere around there. And they think that one is going to pass judicial muster for not being extreme gerrymandered.
Right.
But we should say also, just a reminder, the New York State Democratic Party is so feckless and useless that they screwed up all the constitutional amendments. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody knew these things were going on. We didn't even know.
No. Yeah.
And we knew a little bit, but not much. And that this was on the ballot and they lost because
They lost, yeah, because they didn't tell anyone about it. They didn't tell anyone to vote for it. It was absurd.
they
was an
scheduled it in
off-year-
like July,
yeah.
I think, in an
Yeah.
off-year election.
Yeah, but no, I mean it's going to be, and it's funny because, like I said, traditionally in New York, where they had previously allowed Republicans to keep partial control of the state legislature, like this wouldn't have come up, but that it does suggest things have changed where you're actually like, oh, they're going to press their advantage.
Yeah.
Now that they've been given the okay, they're actually going to press their advantage.
Now that Andrew Cuomo is like, just, I don't know what he's doing, running a,
And I think it's going to go to an appeals court. I think that Hochul sent the justice to, right? So I think it's going to appeals court next. I can't remember if that's one that used to have a conservative majority or not. But anyway.
Alex, we will talk more about the SAG-AFTRA strike in the coming weeks with you.
Yeah, I'm
We'll
sure
give
we
you a
will.
crack
Maybe the
at
coming months.
Yeah, it's very. I think it's. I think that's likely, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
No,
we're
I
gonna-
think so too.
in a minute, we're going to be talking to Andrew Leeds. He's an actor and was part of a video that was More Perfect Union put
Yes.
out to talk about this strike. But Alex Pareene, always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
People
Always.
can check out your podcast, Politics of Everything. I'm sure wherever you find podcasts are.
Yeah,
and,
most of the places you find them. Yeah.
and people will be waiting with bated breath
Yeah.
for your big announcement, which
Yeah.
we have uncovered through our reporting skills.
All right. I appreciate
All
it.
right. We're going to
Thanks,
take a quick
Alex.
break. Thanks, Alex.
See ya.
Quick break, everybody, and we'll be right back with Andrew Leeds. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Andrew Leeds. He is an actor. You maybe have seen him in Barry or The Patient or The Dropout, or among other things, and also a member of SAG-AFTRA. And as of midnight last night, or today, I can't.
As of today.
For the past 13 hours has been on strike against the producers of television and film. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Good to be here. Nice to meet you all.
All right. So we saw you in this More Perfect Union video. We're just going to play a little bit of it so people know what we're talking about, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm an actor and a writer. I've been on such shows as Barry, The Patient, stuff like that. I think what we've all seen is the shift to streaming, and unfortunately, our contracts were not negotiated for streaming. They were negotiated for network television. So in some instances, we don't have protections on streaming in the way that we have protections on network television. And so what you have are situations that now occur where we're not being compensated fairly. And so a residual is something when the show re-airs.
Let's have Andrew actually tell us about that.
Okay.
I know sometimes hard to
watch yourself. Yeah.
Fix my hair here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right, let's talk about this because there was a similar dynamic that took place. I mean, this is one of the issues. There's obviously other issues too, but this is one of the dynamics that took place like when cable became more prominent in like the 80s into the 90s. You guys got paid based upon a structure that anticipated that there was a business model for television, and where residuals became a really important part of the pay. Walk us through this as a working actor.
So I mean, the residuals. I've been a SAG member since 1990, like maybe 1991 or 92 or something like that. So that was residuals. All that stuff was so well in place by the time I started working. And I don't really know the full history of how it unfolded. I do know that obviously we had to fight to get residuals. I think, the reason that it came about was probably a few things, which is one, that we all, the union felt like we should have some ownership in what we create in some way. I also think there's an element which is that in an effort, because they didn't want to pay a lot up front for that, they said, well, we'll pay you, if we succeed, you succeed, right? And so a large portion of your salary, if you do a guest star on a TV show, I'm sure there's an average, but I'd say you could probably expect that you could, over the life of that show, you would probably make about 3 times what you made initially. So when you're really looking at it, it's like the first chunk of money that you make is about, maybe a third or to a quarter of what you ultimately will make from that show. So in Canada, they have a different system. They pay the majority. I think they pay all of it up front, actually. I don't know that they get any residuals. And so that's an interesting model as well. Part of the reason we have residuals is because it allows us in times when we're not working as much, because the business is so wildly unpredictable. And on top of that, it's very easy in our business to get sort of pushed aside depending on your age or your gender or, all sorts of reasons that you may not be viable in a certain time period as an actor. If certain types of shows are being made, if the CW is making a bunch of teenager shows, you're not going to get to be on those. And also there's just a lot of bias and issues like that. So the idea with residuals was that in our leaner times, that would help us get through those leaner times, and it would also help us get health insurance in those leaner times. And so what's happened now, I don't even know what you asked me anymore. I'm just going.
Well, I think I think you hit on the main points about this. One, from the producer's side, it was a way to basically make pay contingent upon the success. The model of television, particularly in the 90s, 80s, was as a producer, I'm going to make this show. I'm going to get paid by the network that I sell it to the first time, and maybe we'll get to break even, including what I've paid the actors for the one time that they go on. And then I'm going to turn around as a producer in a studio, and I'm going to sell it in aftermarkets in reruns on, you know, channel 56 or whatever it was at the time, UHF. And then maybe I can sell it overseas, and the actors participate in that. From the actor perspective, like you say, it spreads it out over time, because each year in the union, and this all happened in 1960, you become eligible for health insurance, invest in your pension if you hit somewhere. Right now, I think it's like $24,000, $25,000, $23,000. And residuals make up a big part of that. I know that, like, you know, for me, many years, residuals were the thing that got me the bulk of like getting over the line for healthcare. And that makes a big difference. But all of that has changed because it's a one-time sale sometimes now with the streamers, and you don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, you do. So, I mean, it depends. Here's the other thing about it. If I showed you there's a chart that somebody made of how you get residuals, there's no, I mean, I'm pretty well educated on this, and I would have to refer to the chart, and it would take me a while to figure out. If you said to me, so I made a show for ABC, and then they sold it to Netflix, and it's in year 3 of airing on Netflix, what does that mean? It's so wildly different all over the place. As you know, as a perfect example, you just don't know. And unfortunately, you know, I take issue with this, but agents don't commission on residuals, right? Which I think is correct, but that also means that they don't negotiate for residuals. So whatever's in the SAG basic minimum agreement is what you get. And oftentimes, because they don't negotiate for them, they don't know about them, and they don't explain to you what the situation is, right? So you have your lawyer, your representative, they're not going to go through I mean, first of all, they won't even try to negotiate because it'll just be shot down immediately. But for the residuals, but you know, I know a lot of people that are on these Amazon Freevee shows, which are AVOD shows, which are advertising video on demand shows, which are essentially a lot like network television, right? They're free shows to the public that are paid for by advertisers, right? Essentially, right? Commercials. And those shows you don't receive any residuals on those shows whatsoever. And the reason for that is because when it was negotiated, the studios, as they always do, say, well, we don't know if this is even going to work. We don't know if we're going to be able to make any money. So we'll talk about it later. By the way, I think it's real. To me, it's really funny because after you hear the same lines over and over again, you know, everybody knew that they were lies, right? Everybody always knew. In 2007 during the strike, we all knew that they were lies. We don't know if we can make it. But you sort of say, well, they don't know. They don't know. They're telling us they don't know. And then you hear it over and over again. You hear the same thing. We're not making any money. You know, there's no more money left. And you start to realize it's just like going in to negotiate a car deal.
Yeah.
Like it's the same things that if the car dealer is really not making any money, why is he selling you a car? It just doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't. And you start to realize, and I think we finally have all collectively realized, I think they're lying. But anyway, going back to the residuals. So on Amazon Freevee, you're not getting any residuals. Not only you're not getting any residuals, but on Amazon Freevee, there's no minimum. The minimum is the California minimum wage if you're working in California. So, you know, and by the way, you know, listen, if you didn't have to spend your life auditioning for things, if you didn't have to go to costume fittings, which you're not paid for, if you're not like putting yourself on hold all the time for these shows, being paid minimum wage maybe would be reasonable. I don't know. I don't think it would probably be reasonable because it's a specialized field that people train for and all these things. But the fact that you can go make a $5 million TV show on ABC or a $5 million TV show on Apple or a $5 million TV show on Amazon Freevee, and you're paid differently at all those places is highly problematic and very strange, frankly.
Well, you know, I think what's ultimately going to prove to be one of the dynamics that I think has not gotten the attention here is that, you know, and like you say, you really have now the producers, the AMPT. I can never remember what the initials are, but it is a you know, the association of these producers.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a time where these producers had a set of divergent incentives, because you can definitely have an era where it's like they all had the same business model. And sometimes somebody might say, like, you know what, if we stay out for another 3-4 months, Paramount's going to go in the toilet and we'll be okay over here at at Universal or whatever it is. But now we have that cohort of old timey, if you will, producers, and now like sort of tech bro stuff, people coming down from Silicon Valley who have this ethos of like, why do we have to pay actors residuals when they're all desperate to work, and we can gig economy them? And same with the writers. This is the same attitude. And they may not have the same business structure. Yeah. So, a lot of people talk about, we know that story that came out about the Writers Guild yesterday, where people, these executives are like, we're going to starve them out. We'll see how they do in October when they're losing their leases and whatnot. With SAG-AFTRA, there's two different dynamics. One is that there could be in different incentive structures for the producers, and they could start to split apart. Well, and the other is that when you're talking about 160,000 people, a lot of these people already having to sort of deal with very little income coming from SAG. And so their ability to hang in there, paradoxically, may be greater than others. And that's what was so big about that 1,000 signatory letter from like the so-called stars. Will you tell us about that dynamic? Because I don't think we would have seen that in the past.
I'm kind of surprised by it as well. I always think about like all the people that aren't going to necessarily benefit from, from this movement, right? And I think obviously that was the way, 40 years ago when or whenever it was that they struck before. Like there are a lot of people that aren't. There are a lot of people I know who are on hit TV shows, finally got on their hit TV show. They're finally making good money, and they're equally behind this. And I think that everybody is much more aware than maybe they were before. I think social media has changed that. I think it's people are much more vocal about how they're mistreated. So, you're not going to, on a set, you're not going to turn around to the star of the show and say, hey, just so you know, you're making $1.5 million an episode and I'm making $1,000 for my week's worth of work here, because it would be just incredibly awkward. But I think people are now feeling comfortable enough to say it to the public at large, without naming names, about what's going on, which is that there's just been a huge, look, these companies are making shows that are way more expensive than ever, right? Apple's making shows that are $15-20 million an episode. Amazon, all these places are doing that. An ABC show is going to cost you $7 million an episode, and yet actors and writers are somehow making less. And so I feel like I know what's happened, which is that some people are making a lot more. Right? Which is also the case. It's the same exact thing in these companies with these CEOs and the people that are way down below them. So what was your question?
Well, no, but I think that dynamic, one, you have this dynamic where you have stars because there's so much product out there now. You need a name that, to market off of. And so they're getting paid the bulk of the actor compensation. But it's not like you don't need these other people around them, and it's not like they're doing any less work, and it's not like it's that much easier for them to get there. That's part of the dynamic. But what's been interesting is that these people who don't need they needed the union when they started, but they get to a certain point and they don't theoretically need the union. I'm making way over scale. There's no union issue with me. If I didn't have health insurance, I can go buy it and this and that. And they're coming out and saying to the union, don't back down with that letter. And I think that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. I think part of that is there are the people that are the Meryl Streeps of the world, right? They don't have to worry about anything. And I think they're just good people and they want to support. And by the way, they're okay if they don't do a movie for a year, right? So to them, it's like, I'm going to do the right thing. And that's great. Then there are the people that look like they're making a lot of money. the people that are on TV shows that you think, oh, they're making so much money. And a lot of those people are not making that much money. And B, even if they are making what seems to be a decent amount of money per episode, you're talking about people that are on cable shows or streaming shows that are now only 8 episodes, sometimes 6 episodes, sometimes 4 episodes. I mean, so, and they're working for 4 months for ultimately what comes down to not so far off from what the minimums are in a lot of ways. And this happens with writers too, where they basically use you for a longer period of time than they used to, because on network television, we had to stick to schedules. There was 22 episodes. You had to do 8-day episodes. You had to shoot 8 days at a time. You had to get those episodes out. Now they can shoot their 6 episodes over the course of 4 or 5 months if they want to, and they can then take another 4 months to edit it. It doesn't matter. And so what happens is, because of that lack of organization, I would say, or I don't even know, I'm curious as to why this happens. Everybody gets held and can't take other jobs. Can't even get other jobs because nobody will touch you, because they're like, you're busy. We don't,
Right.
we don't know what your schedule is. And so you get held for all this time. And, and also, for an actor too, it's also really tough because imagine, I've had shows where I've had to have beards, right? Well, guess what? A lot of shows don't want me with the beard. So now I'm being paid to do 3 episodes over the course of 4 months. By the way, not even paying like amazing money, like just like the minimum basically. And I can't even get another job because I can't shave my beard, and that just didn't used to happen. So I think you're also seeing people that are regulars on these amazing shows that are Emmy nominated, all this stuff. And they're making, again, what seems to be a good amount of money, but really they're not. And on top of that, a lot of times their residuals are completely stripped away from them, because there is currently the AMPTP has the ability to count your salary as an advance on your residuals. So, which is really irritating and something that sort of slipped in. It wasn't like 20 years ago that wasn't really happening, and now it's just across the board. So I believe that's something that they're also fighting for, is to stop that from happening. On top of that, if you're a series regular and you're making whatever you're making over a certain amount of money an episode, they cap you with your health and pension contributions. So for example, if I make enough money from a particular episode of a show, then I get residuals on that. The residuals don't count towards health and pension. So I could have been a regular on a show for 9 years, and then the next year I don't work at all because it's sort of hard to find a job. People know me too much from that show or whatever the reason. And now my residuals, which I'm making decent residuals, maybe, don't count towards the health and pension. So that's something that hasn't changed in 40 years. Those caps have not been raised in 40 years.
Wow.
Which is also just insane. Like, just no one adjusted for them. So, and then the last thing I'll just add to why I think people are jumping in is that the residuals for these shows are not good. They're just not good. And they're not good. They're not only the only time that residuals have been really, really good was network television. And then when it went to pay TV, basically if you do an HBO show, HBO probably made the show themselves. And so your residuals are based on, they're allowed to air it for as much as they want over the course of a year. And they give you a single payment. And that single payment is based on the gross receipts of the show. Now, they made the show, they air the show. So the gross receipts of the show are whatever number they decide.
They decide internally what one hand is going to pay the other hand. And they know we're not going to pay that much because we don't want this on our books.
Yes, they're going to pay the least amount possible that they can get away with before someone says, hey, that's weird. And then that number, the SAG gets a percentage of that, whatever that gross receipt number is, and it's divided amongst all of the actors in the episode. So if you're on a show, for example, that has, a lot of action in it, you're going to have 50 stunt people. All those stunt people are going to be everybody's dividing up that number. So you end up with, you could do something that should have been, a $3,000 residual will be $100. It's crazy.
Wow. Well,
so, anyway.
Andrew Leeds, thanks for talking to us. This is just the first that we're going to be talking about this in the coming days and weeks. Hang in there, and I imagine you're going to start to head out to the picket lines today. They're forming As far as I know, in LA and New York.
How can people support? How can people, is there a strike fund that we can link to?
Yeah, there is. There is a strike fund. I mean, one of the ways you can support, the thing that's really, the thing that's upsetting about all this is that obviously the writers, and I'm also a WGA member, the writers and the Screen Actors Guild members obviously are not going to be able to make money. They also can't collect unemployment, I believe, during a strike, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. But it's also all the below the line people, because all of those people, the restaurants in the area, everything is going to be completely obliterated by something like this, which is really terrible. And and I'll just say it, completely the doing of the AMPTP. It's not, it's, a lot of people would like to say, you guys chose to go on strike. And it's like, well, that's not really what happened. We chose to do this because there's no way that we can make, I've watched too many people, successful people working, you would say, oh, I know that person, I see him on TV all the time, and they cannot afford to feed their family. Most people I know don't own a house. They rent an apartment, which is totally fine. But I'm just saying these are people that are living paycheck to paycheck, Yeah. So there are funds for below the line workers as well, I believe. So that's something you can do. And I mean, I'm saying this, and I don't know if I'm even allowed to, but I do think canceling your subscriptions to Netflix, to HBO Max, to Disney Plus, to Apple, all those things are very helpful, because ultimately what this comes down to, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, is the stock price, right? And that's why this is all happening, right? Because they keep saying to their investors, we're doing great, we're making all this money, and their stock price goes up, and then they get compensated really, really well. And then they say to us, we're not making any money, we're losing money. That's why we can't afford to pay you. So cancel your subscriptions.
The bottom line is that they're not going to feel the heat. And the reason why this used to be sort of traditional, why the contract would end here, and why they pushed it 12 days, was they wanted those summer box office movies to get the publicity. They also know that, at least traditionally in network television, everybody sort of hung back as a viewer until September, when the new shows came in, back to school, late September, early October. That's why they think they can make it till October, because they weren't anticipating, they have a summer drop off of numbers in terms of viewing, theoretically. If they start to feel that a little bit earlier this year, that's going to help people. People can also go to SAG-AFTRA There's both social media toolkits there. There's stuff to help volunteer if you're not in the union. There is facts there, all that stuff. Andrew, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk to another actor who's been on strike actually for a long time, even preceding this, just in anticipation of this. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Andy Kindler, and he will be joining us in just a moment.
My I went with the emergency 911. Hi, everybody. Check it out. Look behind me.
Well, nobody can see it actually, because we're back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland, ladies and gentlemen. It's Andy Kindler. Can we?
With a Jew like Andy Kindler.
Let's do wide frame for him, just to give him a single shot for a moment, so we can see what's happening behind him.
God bless
you're looking maniacal. He's so.
Give me a wide shot. Why is Emma in my shot?
I mean, it's in my contract, Andy.
Oh my God! I went to the wall for you, Emma.
Yeah, Andy Kindler. You made me laugh so hard.
Oh, whoa!
To write you your own theme song.
Andy
Kindler.
Jeweler,
right.
Jew
All right.
Kindler, Jews.
All right.
Andy, I changed my name to Andy Jews.
Andy Kindler, let's just start. You were so proud of your backdrop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got flowers that I bought for my beautiful
I
wife.
just don't understand. Like, what's going on there? Every time we talk to you, it's a different backdrop.
It's like
and I gotta
it's
say,
like a therapist's office.
but it looks like it doesn't look like anybody lives there. It looks like a therapist's office.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I have to take a call. Is it union? I can't do it. Call me back. It's sir. You sure it's not union? I can't do it. How is that? Good? Acting?
Yeah, no, you still got it.
I'm on strike, guys.
I was gonna say, John Benjamin used to have a joke years and years and years ago. He's like, I want to live under a dictatorship so that I can justify my sense of oppression. And like on some level, this is perfect for you because like you could say like I'm not working because there's a
Right.
strike.
And I'm exactly. Now, look.
Yeah.
Yes, the phone wasn't ringing before the strike. That's true. But that's because a lot of deals were in the works. And by the way, soon Cameo is going to go union. So watch out. I'll have no work at all when I go union with Cameo.
I like how you got that in the first
Cameo.
2 minutes.
Subtle.
We no cameos without at least $15 minimum to pay for a cameo.
But you undersell yourself on Cameo anyway.
No, I'm on.
Like,
I'm
don't you do-
45 now. I'm 45.
45.
$45.
That's good.
You started out at like $7.
$7. Then I lowered to $6. I went to $5. And then I gave a free Andy Kindler DVD of I Wish I Was Bitter with the cameo.
And you would personally deliver it.
And FTD Floral 20% off your next arrangement.
Oh, that's actually a
not
good
bad.
idea.
That's not
Actually, that is actually a good idea. Like if you figured out how to do like coupon codes, that's very smart.
If cannabis shops would pay me in cannabis, that's all I'm asking for. I will advertise 24/7.
Hey, there you go. All right. Well, the gauntlet's been dropped.
That's your
That
this
may
is your
happen.
influencer era.
That may
Andy.
happen.
I guess they close at 11 o'clock though.
So now, Andy, are you going to go to the picket lines? I'm heading out
Yes.
there Thursday. I get the picket lines in New York are all like 9 a.m. I think to 1 p.m. So tough for me to make it here until Thursday.
You can't do it out here. They say get in line if you want to pick. Just get in line if you want to pick it. That's how tough it is with the competition. I can't pick it because Brad Pitt's in front of me.
Yeah,
And they go way over
can't
there.
you can't even
No.
get booked on the picket line.
On the picket list. I'm on the waiting list. I'm on the waiting list to see if someone drops out of the. If I can't think of one person on TV. If the guy if John Krasinski gets sick, they're gonna send me
That's
in.
good. Yeah.
Too many Kindler types on the line is what you're saying, right?
Well, I don't understand I was up for Jack Reacher, and here's my
Is that
audition
Mission
tape.
Impossible?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what
know.
Krasinski's in. Yeah.
Okay, well,
that's
save-
I know what that's the I remember.
That's the CIA op.
Here's my Jack Reacher audition. Oh my God! There's a criminal who I can't quite get. Oh, if I could only reach that criminal. Oh, with my Reacher arm. You guys don't know Jack Reacher?
I love Jack Reacher.
Oh, sorry,
I mean,
Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan is the bad one. Jack Reacher's a very good show. I think it
Is
maybe
it
would have
also
been better.
Jack Reacher too?
I don't know.
There's Jack
There's
Ryan and
two?
Jack Reacher, but
is the Tom Clancy.
you're down.
Your mic's not on.
Reacher's the good one, and I mean I do think it might have been better if Andy was the lead, but
Oh, I can't quite get this damsel off of the ledge. Please, damsel. Ah, the hell with her. Huh?
You know,
that
Andy,
works.
one of the first thoughts I had was, oh no, with this strike, are we going to have a problem with Andy on social media? I mean, I was like, is there going to be just too much time on Andy's hands? And then I went to your Twitter feed and I realized like
Yeah.
you were winding up for this.
It's all my fault, I think. I've
It really is not. I wish I could say it was your fault, Emma. Before you came along, I never got into scrapes on the internet. All of a sudden, you're there. People don't like. People think I'm a little mouthy, is what they think.
Oh yeah.
No, here's the thing. I'm being targeted now by Glinner Graham Linehan is his name.
Who?
Graham Linehan is his name.
Who's that?
Graham Linehan. From,
What was I calling him?
Graham
Lineman.
Linehan.
He's like a
he
British
was the
comic.
creator
He's
of
a wild
Father Steve.
transphobe.
Oh,
What's
okay.
that?
He's a British comedian who's
Like one of the most, like, I would say, viral and
Yeah.
obsessive transphobes.
He created Father Ted and some other of those. Like, yeah, I don't know. I try when I was really into British comedy in like the 2000s. Like, even I couldn't quite get.
Oh,
into
you mean the
Linehan
weak
stuff.
era of British comedy? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we bonded over our mutual hate of Ricky Gervais, who might be the worst. I'm making a list of the most despicable human beings. It's different from Oberman's list.
So you bonded over your hate of Ricky Gervais, and then
Right.
and then
It's
you
not
had
Gervais. Will you stop making him French?
Gervais.
I think it's Gervais.
It is Gervais.
Whatever.
Right, I think Gervais is better. Okay, yes, we bonded over because
Over
Ricky
Ricky
Gervais. Everybody in Britain hates. Well, first of all, I'm realizing now that a lot of people in like your Richard Dawkins and all those kind of, they're actually white colonialists. They're not
Yeah.
even from the generation past. They are still Richard Dawkins in his early years took over several countries as part of him before he started into his meme bits.
All right. So and then
So this guy went after me. So this guy, all of a sudden, when I have a friend, Parker Malloy. Do you guys know Parker Malloy?
Yes.
He is the greatest.
Online. Yeah. Okay.
Parker Malloy told me that guy's crazy. She said years ago, that guy's crazy. And then I didn't know. I went to his account, and he's like, "Man, women are wearing. There are no such things. Wasn't Renee Richards?
Yeah.
Was that-
tennis player?
Yeah. Now I heard that this might not be true because I don't know anything for real. Renee Richards coached Martina Navratilova. This is the most disgusting thing I have ever experienced in my life. How can you, Martina Navratilova, say what you want about America? She came here. Like I allowed it.
What?
Say what you want. She escaped the Eastern Bloc thing, and she was here, and she's using the exact same arguments that were used against gay people, against trans people. There's no difference. How does she justify it? Thank you.
I mean, it's amazing to me because they are really feeding into patriarchal notions of womanhood, and they have no understanding of that's the case, where it's they want to define womanhood as the patriarchy defines it, and then they're gatekeeping other people who are women, they're just trans women, from participating, and then they think like they're preserving something finite, where it's like, it's just bizarre to me. I don't understand how you can have that conception of your of womanhood and be that exclusionary. As if like Maria Navratilova's experience as a white woman is in any way comparable to like say an indigenous woman in this country,
Right.
or
Yes,
a black
exactly.
woman.
No.
Like everybody's womanhood is different. Trans women's journey to womanhood also different, and so like. Expand the tent, but it's not. I would say, Andy, it's not a coincidence that white women are at the forefront of this TERF movement, because they really are. They're just bigots across the board, and that's their definition of what a woman is very much centered on their own experience.
Well, I think that you said it perfectly, and if I was to add to it, I would ruin it. But I want to say that you're absolutely right, and it's like. To me, I don't know how it all worked. How did we end up in a world? I just found a lyric that the Beatles used that could be used for Joe Rogan. He's the all-American bullet-headed Saxon mother's son. That's from Bungalow Bill. Okay, so look, Joe Rogan. If you told me that Joe Rogan, when I watched him, I go, okay, this might be the worst comic I've ever seen. Terrible, terrible. He did bits like, these two animals are having sex. All right, I didn't do it as good as he did. How did these people end up as our? I mean, I know it's disgusting. I know they were always horrible comedians, misogynist assholes, Dice Clay, all these people. But how did it get so tied up with this right-wing movement? I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because it's a lot of it is just greed. You know, like
yeah, I
Adam
mean, I
Carolla,
think
greed.
he came from fighting MMA and grew, and then eventually just sort of like wandered into that territory in the same way that people forget Mike Pence was a radio host who used to fill in for Rush Limbaugh. I mean, it's just this country does not require a tremendous amount of like expertise or bona fides or even work.
Well, how about Russell? How about Russell
important...
Brand? How about Russell Brand?
Yeah.
I mean,
I never was a big fan of Russell Brand, but there was a time period when he was entering recovery where he actually seemed to say a couple of things that might have been helping people in recovery. Now,
yeah, and Russell Brand also voiced the Mark Fisher book, Capitalist Realism, I think. And there's been times where he's been saying things like, I think like even 5 years ago, defending the NHS, and now he's basically joined in the venture capitalist attack on public health in this country with his anti-vax COVID stuff.
I think a lot of it is that it is easy for someone who is adept at being entertaining in some manner, and sort of wades into this stuff to be untethered and to basically go with the people who have access to them. And on the right, the concept of like oddly of celebrity in that world is much more fed. And I mean, literally it's just much more, there's more resources. And people, I find it odd, chase celebrity. It's one thing to chase celebrity in the context of being an actor.
right.
Even though I think, frankly, you and I may come from like a school of a dispositional school where like we sort of have a little bit of a jaundiced eye towards that. I mean, your whole comedy career was basically in critiquing the industry on some level. And I think certainly the stuff that I did that was most meaningful to me was also the same way. But if you get, how do you get really crappy actors to become huge stars? It happens all the time.
Right.
They chase celebrity, and that when that gets imported into this sort of political realm, it's not that hard to do, particularly like with, if you're aligned with sort of like the mentality of what drives, social media numbers, it's not that, it's doable. With that said, I'm glad you're here because we have some comedy that is also.
Oh, I thought this was one of my new bits that I open up with.
We have some.
road.
Yeah, we don't. Let's get like sort of funny with some of this stuff
because it's Casual Friday,
It's
folks.
Casual Friday. We're being so serious with these topics.
No, we don't need it. We don't need it.
Let's go into something that's funnier.
Choo choo.
When we talk about the actually, no, we don't have any Dennis Miller.
Well, it's too old. I think Emma was the first person to go. The guy's 100 and he's from he was from vaudeville. Let him go already.
I mean, maybe I said that, but I don't remember. I don't even remember.
This is
No, I
a
don't
clip
think that- I
that
don't
is
think so.
provided to us by the show The Surfs, because apparently they actually purchased a membership or something. Somehow got a hold of this clip.
Yeah.
This is a direct to members stand-up special of Jimmy Dore doing some insightful trans work here.
And does he sound like this?
Well, Andy, you'll know it's a joke because he'll look at the camera like.
Does he have the card table on the projector? Because I heard that he's upgraded his card table.
This is like he's doing a stand-up special here. Like he's
okay.
really shooting
really
it
performing.
professionally. And
psyched.
you'll see like this. So this is the A material, incidentally, which you bring out for the big special. This is the A set.
So it goes L, G, B, and then T. Skip the T's, don't need that headache.
I'll pause it. To be fair, we're not going to pay for the whole thing. So we don't have access as to why anybody in that audience thought that was funny. There may have been some brilliant premise, like about
No.
You know,
I doubt that. I will bet my money on that they just were agreeing that the T should be taken out. That's what they're agreeing with.
I mean, but it's also hilarious.
It's
that
also
you would
funny,
skip
too.
the T. It's also super
Those
hilarious.
wacky T's who have no place to go now. How the hell with them?
And I'll tell you, as someone who has some experience producing stuff like this, the number of mics in the audience. There's a lot of mics in this audience. You could hear like individual laughers in there, which is pretty good.
Put lavaliers on all of them.
Exactly.
So it goes L, G, B, and then T. Skip the T's, don't need that headache. I tell you, I'm so nervous, I don't even feel comfortable talking about trans fats. If you want to go...
Time out. Andy needs to say something.
Oh, sometimes things are funny. Sometimes things are funny. You have to give it up.
Need to get Andy oxygen mask.
Actually,
You said trans fats. You said trans fats.
I didn't even like. Look, I was so scared of trans people. I wouldn't even touch trans fats.
I
In
mean,
a restaurant, is that going to groom my son?
Yeah.
Right from restaurants.
if you thought pronouns were funny, wait till you get a hold of prefixes.
I know, but honestly, I mean, you got to be. You can be so scared of trans stuff that you would never go to Transylvania.
Yeah.
Am I right, people?
Not even with transportation.
Yes.
Hey, why don't we put those trans people in a trance and send them over to trans?
Okay, that was. But honestly, I mean that it's clever because trans
clever.
and trans, and then you
And we're anxious.
crisscross.
Even
Crisscross.
fascist wordplay is funny.
Let's go. All right, so let's go back a little bit and the trans stuff. And you know how you can measure the audience is by how hard they laughed at that.
I tell you, I'm so nervous, I don't even feel comfortable talking about trans fats.
I don't need to stop.
You wanna
I don't
go
need to
from
stop it again too, but we got to play it again because you know what's even better is that not only is that joke, but he elongates the like he hits, like he adds a syllable in the word trans fats as if to say like, I'm building in the snare drum into the actual line, which is that's a pro
Yes, but
technique.
you have to also say he's unnaturally funny. He's not funny at all. He's naturally a horribly unfunny person. So that's why he engages in the stand-up comedy tricks, because he has nothing else but his warmed over Johnny Carson impression.
All right, let's go back and just listen to the way that he hits the
That hurt,
trans
Emma.
to remind everybody.
Oh, yeah.
that's
That
where
was
the
a little
joke
too
is.
accurate.
So it goes L, G, B, and then T. Skip the T's, don't need that headache. I tell you, I'm so nervous, I don't even feel comfortable talking about trans fats.
Yeah, you're right.
If you want to go from a mono to a polyunsaturated, that is your journey, and I support it.
Applauding that.
Look what they did to Chappelle. You cross the T's, they will dot your I.
Pause it for
So
a second.
I'm not gonna-
What is that?
What does that mean? What does it actually mean?
I mean, people are
He's like-
clapping and laughing like they knew like exactly.
No,
like,
it doesn't mean anything
got
at
your
all.
eyes
He'll
dotted.
caught. Maybe he thinks Chappelle's going to punch, or the trans people will punch.
Is it
Chappelle.
like a sniper thing, like getting shot? Something
Probably
like
more
that?
punch in the eyes.
And let's
They-
not forget that Chappelle is one of the worst human beings in the world, and has gone out specifically in Netflix specials to trash trans people, bash them. He does. That's all he talks about in the last special. that I saw.
Yeah, he's fixated.
So
Well, it's multiple specials, like in a row.
Yes.
He's fixated.
Well, trans people got to be taken down a notch. I mean, don't we? I mean, we agree with that. They got to be taken down.
How
a
many
notch.
rights? That's a new one. They go,
But-
what they say? What rights specifically?
Is there
would you like?
something about the dot the eye that I'm not aware of, like some cultural reference?
I think it's a
No, it's
violence
gotta be-
thing. It's punching you in the eye, you get black eyes. I think that's probably the. If he had to elaborate.
Did he get punched in the eye?
No.
Did Chappelle get punched?
Wasn't there something?
Oh,
Well, I don't
he-
think Chappelle was. Did somebody go on the stage? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Oh, and they
yeah.
said it was. There's somebody that went on the stage, right? I don't
Yes.
remember the story.
You guys are thinking too hard into this.
Well, I'm
think so.
trying to
Yeah,
find
true.
out what's funny because otherwise it's like I went from trans to trans fat and now I'm going like T's as in T for trans. Like the
Yes.
joke is
Right.
just another pun.
It's
Yes.
about
Oh,
the
yeah, that's
alphabet.
it,
It's
yeah.
about the alphabet. That's all we've
Yeah,
got
it's-
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
Fair,
yeah.
fair.
Cross the T's, dot your I's. Yeah, I mean that he didn't. Yeah.
No, I know it's an expression, Eric. I know dot the T's,
Yeah.
but it's
I'm going to need a transfusion soon.
oh god.
To do that, I support the trans ladies. In fact, I say trans women are more women than cis women. How could you say that, Jimmy? Well, look at cis women. You could call them guys, and they don't care. Like, you can misgender them. Hey guys, how you doing? They'll go, I'm doing good. How are you? They don't fight for their pronouns. You ever try that with a trans lady? Call them a guy. They don't put up with that shit. I found that out the hard way, boy. One night I came off stage and I was walking past these two trans ladies, and the one trans lady says, "Hey, that was really funny." And I stop and I go, "Thanks, guys. Where are you guys from?" I said it twice.
This did not happen. That's a fucking
And the one
lie.
trans lady got so pissed off.
Nobody came up
She
to him.
slapped me right across the face with her
They're
dick.
violent.
Did her dick? Did you say dick?
Yeah. All right, we'll go back over that. Yeah.
Yeah, please go back over that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. That's a long way. That whole joke just started with how do I do the joke about slapping across the face
Yeah.
with the dick. That was it.
He's still not doing. I'm going to tell you this right now. He's still bombing comedically, and he knows that he's bombing comedically, even though he's getting laughs. He's bombing because he's going. You may ask me why I say that, Jimmy. He's not inconfidently strutting his stuff. He's
Yeah, no,
trying to.
you know-
He knows. He goes. My stuff's not funny. It's just hate speech. But I got to do a show at the Hoo Hoo Lounge, and now I'm going to try and craft these stupid jokes out of it. That's what he looks like while he's delivering it.
This is the tell right here.
Yeah.
When you gotta say like, here's my punchline. That's the tell right there. I mean, like, anybody who's ever performed like knows like when you've got to dig into and you could see that in the beginning of that bit. But
I've seen his stand up 20 or 30 times. I know his stand up. I used to work with him like in the improv. He was just always known as they used to say, we used to think Jimmy was kind of a nice guy, but he's just a terrible comedian. That's what we used to think. He had no political point of view. He had no ideas. He had nothing. Zero. He came with nothing to the table except a desire to make a lot of money giving out misinformation about COVID.
Well, it's
That's what
worked. I mean, you gotta
achieved that dream.
You gotta give it up for that. I mean,
Could you guys live if you knew people had actually seriously died because they listened to your advice? People have died because they listened to Joe Rogan. Can you imagine someone in the hospital? Maybe Jimmy Dore. I shouldn't have been so.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Rogan has said on occasion, you're an idiot if you listen to me. But then, at one point, you got to take responsibility for the fact that, like, you have millions of people in your audience. Chances are there's a decent percentage of idiots.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's
that
just
happens.
asking questions, right? He's not just asking questions, right?
But yeah, that was. What else did we want to go over?
Oh, there's another Jimmy thing.
Do we?
Do you want to play that more?
I wanted to get just to the very end when he does the ultimate stare at the
please.
audience.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, this is the real punchline.
They got
This is
so pissed
ghoulery.
off.
It's
She slapped me
ghoulery.
right across the face with her dick. You ever been slapped with a female penis before? Comes out of nowhere.
Get it?
See?
It comes out of nowhere. Do you get the joke? Either of you get the double entendre?
It comes out of nowhere.
Comes out of nowhere.
I mean, it's not really a double entendre. It's sort of difficult to figure that out.
He's like fixated on stuff like that. Like this is just one of his titles from a few thumbnails from a few days ago.
Why?
AOC PISSES in progressives' faces. That was a day ago.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
coming out.
like-
is Cornel West still gonna?
The like
Can he still get Cornel West to say something positive about him? I know you guys feel differently about this, but I am not a Cornel West fan.
Oh, I think we are, but yeah,
I'm not
it's- I
super
don't know, it's
enthusiastic about the campaign, but whatever.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about. Forget it. Doesn't matter. That's another. Our disagreements on the left are between wonderful people who care deeply about each other.
Yeah.
What was the other thing that we want to talk about with Andy? What? Oh, yeah. Since we're talking about Jimmy Dore, and we might as well, we have a quota that the deep state asked us to hit in terms of Jimmy Dore videos that we play.
By the deep state, you mean MSNBC.
Deep MSNBC.
Remember the Clinton News Network? I
Yeah,
used to
the
laugh
deep
at that.
MSNBC.
Yeah, those
Look,
two.
We should just say, I'm sure, Andy, you read about this big lawsuit, this defamation lawsuit that is filed against Fox News by this supposed pro-Trump protester, Ray
Who was
Epps.
the head of the FBI, who was the underdirector of the FBI under Charles Colson from 75 to 83. And this is proven. He may deny it. It may not be true. I may be lying. But that's what's happening.
This is somebody has resurfaced this. I don't know. Was this recent? I don't know if he did this recently or just.
It can't be recent because he didn't have the hair dye from the special.
Well, the hair dye was in March.
Oh.
So I think this. I'm pretty. I'll double check, but I think this
Isn't
is
this in
recent.
response to the most recent
Yes,
stuff?
I think
It
this
sounds
is
like it
because
is.
he's been indicted.
Oh, is that right?
I mean, because Ray Epps made the lawsuit. This is
in response to the. Are you
The lawsuit,
sure?
yeah.
He references the lawsuit.
He
He,
references
says,
the lawsuit.
Oh, he does?
He says, "I look forward to the discovery."
No,
of it."
no. This is before the suit was filed. This was a while back.
Yeah.
I'm convinced this is older than that. If you don't know when exactly it is, I don't assume. I think this is like probably at least 6 to 8 months out. Because remember, at one point, Tucker Carlson was making this his entire show. And Tucker Carlson got fired the day after Ray Epps was interviewed on 60 Minutes. I think somebody dug this up from,
Yes.
probably the past year and a half.
That's my sense too. From
Certainly,
watching
it's
it.
obviously
Yeah.
in the wake. It had to have happened in the past like year or two because obviously. And listen, what's really important is people understand the assuredness in which he speaks about something that he's totally wrong about. And I mean, I'm not an attorney, and I don't know that that Jimmy Dore has the deep pockets that somebody else does. But I would be worried if I was Jimmy Dore that I would be included in the defamation suit. But if not, I was Jimmy Dore, I would probably file an amicus brief on behalf of Fox News because obviously he doesn't think there's an issue. He seems to have inside information about this.
So this guy's an obvious Fed. January 6th was a fucking FBI psyop to make the MAGA movement illegal and to try to throw Donald Trump in jail for inciting it. Because the establishment is so corrupt, they know people are so done with voting for them that they can't beat a game show host anymore. And that's what that's about. That's what January 6th was about. That's what all these lawsuits against Donald Trump. Could you imagine if Barack Obama got out of the presidency and then Donald Trump tried to prosecute him for 4 straight years?
Well, pause it
and
for 1
did?
second. First of all, we know that Donald Trump did in fact try and prosecute. They had an investigation on Clinton
And
the,
into Obama for looking into the Russian interference, right? Or was that just essentially
well, the Durham
him-
investigation was the investigators, and it started out with like, this is going to the top.
Yeah.
How about the IRS that just happened to audit Comey, who I would audit myself?
Yeah.
But still.
I mean, did Obama try to overturn the democratically elected results of the 2016 election, even though Hillary Clinton, hey, she won the popular vote? They didn't make those kinds of claims. It's so dumb. I mean, this is a left-wing commentator, apparently. They're trying to criminalize the MAGA movement.
Well, how deluded are you to be watching this? I mean, that's the thing that gets me. There's a lot of people like...
Well, I'm sure
who
this
didn't used
video
to be
got
like this.
200,000 views. I mean, that's the thing.
I don't get the crossover to why would you think who's believing? I know they're believing that January 6th was
and we've been saying this for a long time, and I think Michael used to make this point. To be anti-establishment without any type of ideological grounding is allows this type of drift. Because if you don't have, it's one thing to critique the powers that be, but one thing that's problematic about it is when you're not specific about what those powers are. It becomes very easy to drift. And one thing that is problematic about it is to not have any type of ideological sense, whether it's even like a named ideology. If you don't have some principles that are associated with how you would change this situation and under what points, then it's very easy to drift in this way.
It's secret anti-government libertarianism, I think.
Well, it melds into that.
Yeah.
I think because, and you saw that like within the context of like you saw that in with like the hippies. There were left-wing hippies and there were libertarian hippies, and that did not become clearer until you got further out.
Yeah. And all these folks, like, we've degraded from the Bernie Sanders moment where we were actually talking about capitalism and how like both parties are basically different coalitions of capital, one preferable to the other. And now you have all these guys saying the uniparty, which to me is like, that's just an anti-government sort of like dead end.
All right, continue.
I wanted to say this though too, like about these people like J.K. I know this is a little off the topic, but like people like I really believe this about like people like J.K. Rowling and Martina Navratilova. It's like they believe they're superior. I absolutely believe that they've let their fame make them think like, oh, they're actually better people. They're actually smarter, more superior people than the masses. So it's like anybody could have made the mistake with trans people just because they didn't understand it. You don't understand something,
right?
But they went right to their ego took over.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm right, and they are so wrong. And I don't know how they get out of this, except that that's all they'll be remembered for. All J.K. Rowling will be remembered for is this turf movement. And I do really think it's the ego. The ego. It's like Trump. Not as bad, maybe as bad. Just the thinking that they know, and they can tell us. So that's why people like Martina, they don't even know. I don't think J.K. Rowling, they're not even capable of understanding the issue because they entered it from this weird point of view. And they're in Glinner, all those people, and all these people who were Ricky Gervais's friends are all into this J.K. Rowling thing. They went from the atheism, if you believe in God, you're horrible. They went from that to this.
Let's continue to hear Jimmy Dore's really clear theory on who Ray Epps is. That like is,
and he did the Seth Rich stuff, right? I mean, wasn't he terrible about that?
Yep.
Yes.
So this guy's an obvious Fed. January 6th was a fucking FBI psyop to make the MAGA movement illegal and to try to throw Donald Trump in jail for inciting it. Because the establishment is so corrupt, they know people are so done with voting for them that they can't beat a game show host anymore. And that's what that's about. That's what January 6th was about. That's what all these lawsuits against Donald Trump. Could you imagine if Barack Obama got out of the presidency and then Donald Trump tried to prosecute him for 4 straight years and did? Can you imagine that? Because Barack Obama's a war criminal. So they could have.
That's from Cornel West.
Barack Obama tortured Chelsea Manning.
So he gets that from Cornel West, which has always bothered me.
What is it?
Wait, so this tweet that he's referencing from is 4 days ago?
Wow, so you guys were right. Yeah. I mean, then this is pretty irresponsible.
You should have seen the booth.
I
saw them writing notes about you guys.
Hold on 1 second, too. Let's just be clear about something else. And I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't say like I'm happy about this. And this tweet, is this video he did? No, that's not.
He did a video, a very similar video 7 months ago, but I think this is an updated version.
Either way, it's not like he's retracted, obviously, from that tweet. But here's the thing. This notion that they're not voting for the establishment. Now, presumably, there's two ways in which you could say, well, who's the establishment as he's referring to them there? It sounds like he's just saying the Democratic Party, as opposed to the actual establishment, which is members of both party and whatever it is that and I would say also like people in finance, like the establishment actually means something.
Well, he's trying to exclude Trump.
So, he thinks it's amorphous. Yeah, it doesn't include Trump or whatever.
Who's a game show host, which he's not. He was the president, dude. Like, we don't get to call Obama the state senator from Illinois.
Even if like his amorphous notion of who the establishment is at any time, and he deploys it where it's effective for him. And I'm not just saying this isn't just about Jimmy, and make that clear. Like, I don't care about him as a person. Again, this is a line of argument that we hear online, although maybe increasingly less. I'm not sure, but the fact is that just empirically speaking, it's not true. Our election numbers, the people who have been voting in elections, they're not necessarily voting the way I want them to vote, but the numbers are going up. They're not going down.
Yeah.
You're seeing more voter participation across the board than, if you look at the past, I don't know, 2020, 2018, 2022, not as record-breaking as the other ones. But, I mean, just even from an empirical standpoint, what he's saying is all just sort of, there's nothing in this video that is even accidentally true. Mm-hmm. And people
spray with pepper spray. I mean, people were sprayed with pepper spray and almost killed. And I think he doesn't care at this point, or he has convinced himself. Well, he's not. I don't think he's.
But I don't, but I'm just saying, like, putting aside him, which whatever.
Yeah, we should. But I know what you're saying, though. It doesn't matter because he's influential.
This set of lies drives a certain segment of the population, and basically disempowers people at the end of the day, in the same way that Alex Jones's conspiracies disempower people, because it basically says, like, look, if Ray Epps can sue Fox for defamation because he is a deep state psyop, and they have the ability to completely upend the entire civil procedure system, and they're not worried that this psyop government agent is going to get caught in the course of a civil suit where Fox News spends millions, probably tens of millions, on lawyers. If that can't protect you, then there's no point in any of it. That's what the ultimate danger of this stuff is. It is completely disempowering while pretending that you're empowered because you have secret knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here. It's the same stuff that Alex Jones did.
It is.
That is the, whatever, we can make fun of his comedy because it's bad and whatnot, but that's the agenda. And it's the agenda that people should focus on and understand what's going on, because this is ultimately incredibly disempowering in the guise of empowering you because you have secret knowledge now.
And that's Russell Brand too. That's Russell Brand's whole shtick.
And that's why they've got to say there's something censorious going on. The authoritarians are keeping you from hearing the truth. There's nothing you haven't heard.
No, and it makes people feel at least like they're in some way superior, as opposed to having to make those.
They have the secret knowledge.
Those choices. Well, that's what conspiracy theories do. But then from a political perspective, it's like I found, and I still find, some of what Door pushes and propagates. I mean, now he's basically kind of MAGA, but even before that, like this notion that voting for somebody is an individual expression of your soul and it's like some artistic
empowers
choice, right? That's why you
Right.
should don't vote against your conscience because Hillary Clinton's X, Y, blah, 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 as opposed to a strategic choice in a like bevy of other political choices that you can make where you can be more pure or organized with DSA or whatever. I found that to be one of the most insidious things he promoted, but it all, that's disempowering in general, all of that together.
I mean, there's nobody, in my opinion, and he can sue me for this. I don't think there's anything more sleazy than these people. Alex Jones, these are people who literally, and Jimmy, and Corolla, and Joe Rogan, they literally don't care if people live or die. They don't care.
Yeah.
Rafi
They don't care because-
on the IM also brought up another lie in that video. They can't beat a game show host. January 6th happened 3 months after they had just beaten the game show host.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the president, but they had beaten him. It wasn't.
No, clearly the election was rigged. Is what
Well,
this
that
idiot is
may
saying.
be part of the conspiracy selling. I mean,
Yeah. It turned out that him constantly only basically bashing Democrats on his program was like the only stuff that got him views, and he just realized.
It's exactly right, Emma. That's exactly where he's. But not. And here's the thing: not even the conscience, and not just him, even the conscience. No conscience. There is absolutely no conscience. And one thing I find is almost disturbing. Jimmy Dore once, when I told him I was unfollowing him, he goes, "Hey, yeah," he DM'd me. He goes, "Hey, you're ratio. This is ratioed, man. See you in the green room, and we're all." He started throwing. I don't still to this point know what they mean by ratioed, and I don't care. But they're all of his fans are going, "Kindler's getting ratioed. This guy's getting ratioed." It's like he's a crazed, greedy grifter who found his gold rush.
Well
It
said.
happens. Andy Kindler.
Ooh,
This is why we bring you on.
I
a Casual
closed
Friday.
strong.
Yeah.
I like
You
closing
did.
strong. I love
You're out
you
of
guys so
frame.
much.
You are out of frame.
I love you guys so much.
Andy,
Love
take
you,
care of
Andy.
yourself.
I'm
Enjoy the
staying out of
picket line.
frame.
We'll see you in the picket lines.
Okay, I will be there, but not today, but Monday. I'm going
All right,
down.
beautiful.
So please get the call entertainment tonight.
I can't believe they're letting them
Will do.
on the picket lines. They'll probably put you in the
What?
back. They'll probably put you in the back. All right, Andy Kindler, ladies and gentlemen. That's how Andy gets his laughs. He's gives you
yeah.
a funny look.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do some IMs. We're not obviously going to get to any calls today, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Fridays is not a big call day anyways.
No.
Amazon Union Thugs. Hello, MR crew. Going to try and call in. Oops, sorry about that. Bidet-licious. Matt Chrisman said, Elon looks like he swallowed a bird cage. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let's see. Hopefully y'all see this in time for the AP Substack author's input. Says Bradley, fan, have you seen this limp dog crap loan forgiveness presser just put out by the White House? No, did not see that. Sorry. Lefty from Chicago. The Economist recently had an article saying the labor market still needs to get crushed again because inflation might happen again. Yeah, they're so desperate.
Sure.
Iowa Ryan, the head of the company, just called me threatening me. It was horrible. I think I'm fired. He said he'll deal with me on Monday. Yeesh. I hope that works out. Sorry. Golden Oyster Cult, Franz Drescher character in The Nanny refused to cross the picket line. And in her movie, The Beautician and the Beast, there's a scene where she rallies manufacturing workers to unionize. She clearly has an ideological love for workers and unions, and it makes me so happy. I've always loved her.
That's awesome.
Kowalski. The current smaller size of the labor force due to boomer retirement and the massive reindustrialization in North American manufacturing, especially in the Midwest, Texas, and Mexico, makes the idea of recession seem unlikely. I've been following many economists and analysts that think a few years of higher inflation will be a small price for the shorter supply lines and greater integration of the North American economy. Yeah. Sam's Tight Pants. Got to show the Katie Porty Jeopardy clip at the DOD hearing.
Oh.
I guess we'll do that on Monday. I don't know if we have that one.
Not a sheet, but I have it.
Haven't seen. Should we see it?
We should do Drescher. I think.
Oh yeah, let's play Fran Drescher here. Yeah, this is Fran Drescher during the SAG-AFTRA
press conference
announcing that they were going on strike last night. This happened about 24 hours ago. They went on strike last night at midnight.
And she's the president.
We went on strike again.
Yeah, you're in it.
Full disclosure.
She's the president of SAG-AFTRA, and I didn't realize that Reagan once was the president of
Reagan was the
SAG-AFTRA.
president of SAG-AFTRA when they went on strike in 1960.
Yeah, the biggest, when it was both the writers and the actors at that time. This is the first time since then, right? So
yes,
big improvement, I would say, in terms of president.
Yeah, apparently Reagan wasn't the spearhead on the actual labor action there. There was a vice president. I've seen a thread. I'm trying to find it now that goes into who should actually be credited there.
My point is just like,
well, he was a union guy, and then he started to make his money through, I can't remember what big company it was that sent him out to fight against healthcare.
Yeah, I think Perlstein goes into his history. I'm curious.
I can't remember now.
I cannot believe it, quite frankly, how far apart we are on so many things, how they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting. Shame on them. They stand on the wrong side of history at this very moment. We stand in solidarity, in unprecedented unity. Our union and our sister unions and the unions around the world are standing by us, as well as other labor unions. Because at some point, the jig is up. You cannot keep being dwindled and marginalized and disrespected and dishonored. The entire business model has been changed by streaming, digital, AI. This is a moment of history that is a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are all going to be in trouble. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines and big business. Who cares more about Wall Street than you and your family? Most of Americans don't have more than $500 in an emergency.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I think I would like to see more parts of the economy that benefit from, money in the system, having an understanding that actually people should get paid. And I keep referencing this, but there's a LBJ call with Smathers of Florida, senator, and he runs like a grocery chain. He's like, actually, Goldwater's economy would be horrible for us because my customers need money to buy my products. And also, just a note on the Reagan thing, Tim Sherrock has a thread. Yes, Reagan was Screen Actors Guild president in 1960. And Jeffrey Garner points out, Reagan, this is a quote from Garner, Reagan wasn't qualified to be governor, let alone president. I was a vice president of SAG when he was its president. The only thing I remember is that Ronnie never had an original thought and that we had to tell him what to say.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it, though.
He just wanted to be elected, it seems. And
then we should say it was GE that hired him to go around and fight against socialism.
Yeah. But he
gave me the money.
To Matt's point too about like having people who have the financial resources speaking out about this, and this is like, it makes a difference. I mean, I think it's pretty cool that Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy walked out after they did their red carpet of the Oppenheimer premiere, which is going to be one of the biggest movies of the summer, and like they made that known. And I think Margot Robbie speaking about it. We played that yesterday on the Barbie red carpet. Like. This
pink carpet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bradley. This
pink carpet
is like supposed to be the summer of the return of like a lot of really awesome like big budget non-superhero movies. Thank the Lord, and that being this kind of re-energizing moment for the movie industry. But the actors still taking the opportunity to show solidarity, no matter how big their movie is, no matter how much they're getting paid. It's just really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's really
If you've got
significant, too.
DVDs or VHSs at home, now's the time to break them out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's, I keep saying, but like the 2007 writer strike was the first time labor action really impinged on my consciousness in any kind of an educational way. And I think like this is a time where we can actually use celebrity in a way that is useful. Like we'll play there's another clip of Margot Robbie just talking about unions.
Yeah.
And like, I think like this is really good propaganda, frankly.
Totally.
Yep.
And the environment.
Damon's got some good lines too, I think.
Yes.
Matt Damon was really good about education back during the Obama years. He was one of the few people to come out against the Obama administration, Arnie Duncan.
Yeah,
and he and Ben Affleck supported the workers at Harvard striking, or the cafeteria workers too, back in the aughts.
We should get into that Damon thing because he was
Yeah.
edited in a kind of deceitful way
Yeah.
that made him look like he was coming against.
We'll
the
do
strike.
that on
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deadline keeps doing that. They did the same thing with Kenneth Branagh.
Of course, dude, because they know who
bread butters their bread. Yeah.
Yes.
They're a trade publication.
Like, I was
course.
upset because like I saw another.
There's
thing.
no one actor
Yeah.
that they give a shit about.
Right, Kenneth Branagh had something where it was like, I hope it comes to a quick resolution. Like every other thing he said was like extremely like pro the unions.
Yeah,
they're
of
just
course.
trying to
Of
muddy the
course.
waters as much as they can.
Totally.
We got a lot of stuff here on the list here.
Can we do Shapiro? That's my one. It's dumb. You don't want
Yeah,
to.
it's just it's a little bit of a waste for a second. But
Okay.
DC letter carrier says, would you be willing to have Ryan Grimm on to discuss the lab leak theory? I don't think you guys have given the other perspective of fair hearing. Who better to discuss that with than Ryan, has been doing reporting on it for a couple of years. We'll have Ryan on and I will happily bring it up with him. But I got to be honest, I don't care that much. I think that we clearly need to reestablish the importance of like both a cabinet level person on pandemics. We need to reestablish the infrastructure that we had that was stationed in China that Trump had rolled back early on in his assault on the administrative state. It's just and listen, I'm happy to find out that they were working on it and they were sloppy and it leaked from the lab. And I'm happy to find out that it's not. Like, I have no ideological position about this. But let's play this clip from Hotez because I think it's a good example of sort of like the way that people come at this stuff. Now granted it's from News Nation, but and let's be clear. Hotez developed a vaccine that was not patented, that has basically provided 100 million? I don't know how many shots it has provided for people in low-income countries. And like every nefarious thing that you could say about the drug industry and why they developed the vaccine is completely inoperable when you talk about this guy. Now, I know that Bobby Kennedy had an issue with him because Hotez has a child with autism and refuted Kennedy's assertion that it was from vaccines. But the fact of the matter, is that this guy is doing exactly what COVID vaccine skeptics supposedly want.
He's flying in the face of Big Pharma.
Totally.
He's a thorn in their side.
Totally. And he just lays it out with the lab leak theory. I don't know why he would have an investment in the lab leak theory being one way or another either. It's just, he's just going based upon the preponderance of evidence. He lays it all out. It's a long clip, but it's worth listening to.
Why do you think there is such reluctance by the scientific community to entertain even the concept that this new deadly virus came from the lab where the new deadly virus was found?
Oh, I think the scientific community has always entertained it, but the overwhelming evidence over the last 3 years since the start of the pandemic has clearly shown widespread support for another narrative, and that is COVID-19 began just like the original SARS did, severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is a coronavirus that emerged out of southern China in the wet markets in 2002. similar to Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, another coronavirus that emerged out of the Arabian Peninsula, both from bats. And this is going by, COVID-19 is going by the same playbook. And we have now 5 or 6 scientific papers in top quality journals clearly supporting that, the evidence that it arose out of a wet market in Wuhan. In contrast, there are 0 papers on lab leak because there is no evidence for it. So
hold on. We got a couple things. I appreciate this, that there's the scientific community. There's also just sort of the community of what makes sense. The U.S. intelligence community believes that the first 3 people
can we just stop
and
just go back 20 seconds? Because I think okay, there's the scientific community, but there's also the community of just what makes sense.
Who is this guy?
Leland Vittert, he's a former Fox anchor, Fox reporter and anchor who came over to News Nation.
Shocker.
News Nation is like the island of misfit anchors who've left to other networks.
Chris Cuomo.
Ashley Banfield.
This is really,
Shep Smith.
impressive. Like, it really is impressive that a guy could actually, someone who's able to tie his tie, which presumably does, and goes to work every day, can say, well, there's the scientific community, then there's the community of just what makes sense.
And kind of to the point of what is the actual significance of this? It sort of collapses 2 different things, which is was it a lab leak because they were actually just trying to study these diseases, which are becoming more and more frequent as sort of society encroaches into different parts of nature? Or was it some sort of nefarious, constructed virus meant to kill a bunch of people? Those both exist among the lab leak theoreticians.
It's also amazing. This guy's about to espouse something that is absolutely wrong. There's been about the supposed scientists who had COVID in 2019. But let's continue. Just listen to this.
Mitt Romney hair. Same exact haircut.
So hold on. We got a couple things. I appreciate this, that there's the scientific community. There's also just sort of the community of what makes sense. The U.S. intelligence community believes that the first 3 people to have COVID-19 in its current form, cases 1, 2, and 3, were scientists inside this lab. Did they all go to the wet market and eat the same bat?
No. The U.S. intelligence community said exactly the opposite, that those 3 individuals, that's now debunked, and there is no evidence that they had COVID-19, where it clearly arose from the wet market. So, I mean, it's really important that you look closely at the sources of information. So the U.S. intelligence report clearly overwhelmingly supports the natural origins of COVID-19, just like SARS and MERS.
The National Intelligence Council, Natural Exposure, the FBI, and the Department of Energy, laboratory-associated incident was the most likely cause, CIA unable to determine the precise origin.
And just be clear, I don't know if he's going to say this. I can't remember, but the FBI, that was what they called a low confidence opinion. They had to give an opinion.
Yeah.
They said, we have low confidence in this opinion. I would recommend, too, that you find Jim Fallow's article on his Substack about not so much about the question of the lab leak, but the reporting that ProPublica did. It's a fascinating, it really is interesting to look into the way something like this gets reported and how important the reporter's sources are and how transparent that is. He doesn't weigh in on the actual question itself, but rather the way that these reports are generated.
And he's using outdated information about those 3 original, about the symptoms reported. They determined that it was more like flu-like symptoms as opposed to COVID.
And they came out themselves, I think, and one of the doctors said, no.
Yeah, and that he is not excluding, he's excluding at least of now, the report from June from the Director of National Intelligence, which gave lip service essentially to the lab leak theory, but said in the overwhelming bulk of the information and evidence is that it was a zootonic origin.
Natural exposure. The FBI and the Department of Energy, laboratory-associated incident was the most likely cause, CIA unable to determine the precise origin. Again, I appreciate the idea of science.
No, but the summary document from U.S. intelligence clearly supports natural origins.
Yes.
You had 2 minority opinions that really
Doctor,
are not well
what if
supported
everybody's
and
so
no evidence.
Okay, I still can't get over, and I can't believe we're playing.
Sorry,
this,
pause
but
it
I
one
think
second.
John's-
You know what this reminds me of is the ClimateGate thing. Like, they can't actually do any science that shows that their theory is right and get that published and approved. So they instead go into the process and clip it and
Always.
Exactly. Yep.
Always.
And he's
with
not
every one of these things. I mean, you look at with every one of these fake conspiracies, it always ends up being about like, why did Twitter not allow the links to the laptop, for a week?
The evidence that Democrats are groomers is cheese pizza.
Where's the laptop now? Like, we're not talking about the laptop itself. It's just, why was it
about the
suppressed
suspicious
back then?
nature? Yeah.
That really are not well supported
what is everybody
and
so?
no evidence.
Okay, I still can't get over, and I can't believe we're playing this, but I think Jon Stewart may have given us the best idea of sort of how the rest of America looks at where COVID came from. Take a listen.
Oh my God, there's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What do you think happened? Like, I don't know, maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean, or it's the chocolate factory. Maybe that's it.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, well, so that's a good reason you don't take your scientific and medical advice from a professional comedian. Look, I mean, here's what we know. The reason he's saying that is because there is an Institute of Virology in Wuhan where this disease emerged. But the truth is there are institutes of virology studying coronaviruses in just about every major city in China. So no matter where COVID-19 emerged, you can make the argument there was an Institute of Virology nearby, and he fails to make that point. So what he said was very entertaining and amusing, but
Doc, I just gotta get this in. You
You
say there's an Institute of Virology in Wuhan. There is. It studied coronaviruses. It did gain of function research to make coronaviruses more deadly.
As did institutes in Shanghai and Beijing.
But I understand that. But you also make the point about the evidence. The people who control all the evidence is the Chinese, who we know lie, and we can tell they're lying when their lips are moving about this stuff, and covered it up and lied about everything they knew about COVID-19. So why is it that we and peer-reviewed papers and everything else take anything the Chinese are saying as fact and don't just assume the opposite?
Well, look, I can't be an apologist for the Chinese government. The Chinese do what the Chinese do. So I'm not saying that it's clearly we do need more transparency from the Chinese. And one of the things that I've been saying is, look, we've had COVID-19 as our third major coronavirus of the 21st century. You know what we're going to have? We're going to have a fourth major one, possibly out of China before the end of 2030. And why? Because we've not done the outbreak investigation in central China that needs to be done, because we sort of understand that it clearly came from, but we understand it came from bats. It maybe jumped to humans through a second intermediary animal host, but we don't understand at the granular level that we should. In other words, taking samples from bats and animals, livestock across central China. And that's important to do because right now, as we speak, the fourth major coronavirus pandemic is likely emerging somewhere in Asia. We know these coronaviruses are across bats going everywhere from central China to Vietnam and Thailand, all the way up to Japan. And so there's a vulnerability there.
Yeah, that may be the most important thing, which is if we don't figure out how it happened in the past, can't figure out how to stop in the future. Doc, it's good to see you. Thank you very much.
Unbelievable. But the best way to pursue that would be it's one thing for the scientific community, but what about the common sense community?
Yeah, I mean, and
what about doing that?
He just falls back on just like China's scary and can you really trust Chinese people? That's literally what everything is in terms of like the underbelly of this kind of line of inquiry. And he doesn't even listen. You can, I mean, this is a C team, D team kind of like problem. I mean, a camera situation or what do you call news channel, right? So like they don't know to cut away when he's looking at his notes, but he doesn't give a crap about what he's saying about the scientific explanation. It's just for anti-China hawkery. That's it.
Yeah, the most important takeaway from this, I think, is that, you see a scientist there who has no stake in what the answer is, and just is basically coming out with the preponderance of the evidence, but still not in any way saying that therefore we should not do this or that. He's calling for these things. And this is the value to the entertainment news complex is in the intrigue, not in the policy response. And it is the same with all of these, like, let's say like with every single one of them, but those who are not looking at it with like any type of real interest in what's going on, but rather to further this narrative that you're being lied to, that none of it matters, and it's all a hoax. And
and we'll skip the point where we do science to prove our contentions that the COVID was over exaggerated, and B, that this is a lab leak, and we skip right to the tribunals of scientists.
Oh, exactly. And listen, again, I don't feel strongly about the lab leak theory or not. It's
undetermined at this point.
Largely irrelevant to what we should be doing, which is we should be exercising more control, and we should be having more on the ground people to try and figure out these viruses. And I think ultimately there's value in finding out what happened, and it should continue in due course. But the idea that it's being sort of like politicized is not helpful. I don't. I
mean, it's and the Decoding the Gurus podcast did a really long talk with a bunch of these scientists, including Christian Anderson, who's in the one of the emails that I think Grimm's talking about a lot lately. And you can hear it then. But like, and they do grant that like both nations, but China has put pressure onto like certain like investigations, but like the scientists are actually working with that, and they have colleagues within China who are fighting that too. And so when you collapse all of that actual stuff into it's just like basically it's like a Charles Murray type argument. You can't actually there's nothing actually there, but you go to it's being censored.
Right. People should check out that James Fallows piece. I mean, I'm not advocating his writing writ large, but it was a really interesting piece on how the Vanity Fair and ProPublica sort of evolved their reporting and the way that they wrote it out there, and how things sort of got out there. And
they got played by doing, not to be too defensive, but like kind of what the IMR was asking us to do by taking a really close look at this and basically being more charitable to it. And I think it burned ProPublica in that.
Totally.
It did. Yeah. They had to correct themselves.
Totally.
I think we're good.
All right, I guess a couple IMs and then we'll get out of here. You want to do the crop top?
No.
You want to do the crop top?
I think we should ignore Shapiro except when he's doing genocide stuff, because I think he likes when people talk about him in the context of
crop top
stuff.
For men thing the value of this, of course, is like again, maybe he's just saying it's but it's also like again. It's talking about like social construct.
I mean,
like we weren't born with specific clothing on our bodies.
I mean, let's be real here. It was as early as or as recently as like, I don't know, watching the Dallas Cowboys last year, where I saw a man in a crop top. Ezekiel Elliott, that's his whole thing. I've seen a bunch of movies with men wearing crop tops. I enjoy it. I think most women do.
Let's put it up. We got to get to. And I'll just make this clear too. I wouldn't wear a crop top, but that's because I'm missing like a couple of my six packs.
I understand.
A couple of my packs.
And that is your prerogative, but I find it amusing because Ben does two things here that are funny. One, he just doesn't seem to understand the concept that women who are like myself, like abs, right? That's kind of a thing. Also, he says, I don't want to make assumptions about gay men, but then makes a ton of assumptions about what women like, which is always fun.
Got a comment on the dumbest fashion trend of the day. There is such an effort in legacy media to make men into women. It is astonishing. So there's a new piece at the New York Times by a person named Emma Grillo.
Pause it for 1 second. Okay, look. He just said there's an effort to make men into women at the New York Times. and now he's going to tell us how they are trying to make men into women. And it's going to have to do with a piece of clothing. If a piece of clothing can change you from a man into a woman, and I'm not saying that it is in this instance, but if he believes that, then he believes that gender is a social construct. We are not born with a specific color shirt on our, like if it's pink or it's blue or something like that. That is society imposing this, constructing what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. That is a social construct. And he is acknowledging this, even though his entire network is dedicated against that proposition.
Got to comment on the dumbest fashion trend of the day.
Gotta.
There is such an effort in legacy media to make men into women. It is astonishing. So there's a new piece at the New York Times by a person named Emma Grillo called Men Are Bearing Midriffs in Crop Tops. Some are cropping their shirts at home. Others are buying them from stores' women's sections. It's first of all, 99.8% of the men who are bearing their midriffs in crop tops are gay. There are not a lot of straight dudes who are like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hang my belly out here. Those aren't called crop tops when straight dudes do it. It's just you're too fat for your shirt when straight dudes do it. And indeed, every picture from this story is about a gay dude who's bearing his belly. So first of all, let me just say, just as a fashion matter, no one wants to see the midriff of another man. Just as a general, I'm not going to speak for gay men. Women, I don't think, are interested. Neither are straight men.
Women,
like, this is just generally not an attractive thing.
Now he's first
as a
off,
rule.
But I don't know if he's implying that gay men are not men. But he's also speaking for what women like.
Can I speak a little bit more on it? I think I like crop tops. I'm going to be honest. I don't know why he thinks he knows what I would like in a man. But he seems to have like very, very poor understandings of what like women like sexually in general. I mean, you guys can look this up. Infamously, he spoke about WAP, and I don't need to elaborate any further. But yeah, keep going.
Does this look like a guy who doesn't know what women like?
Yeah, he's got a stylist now.
I mean, come on.
I mean, this is the fashion report.
Every picture from this story is about a gay dude who's bearing his belly. So first of all, let me just say, just as a fashion matter, no one wants to see the midriff of another man. Just as a general, I'm not going to speak for gay men. Women, I don't think, are interested. Neither are straight men.
I don't think.
Like, this is just generally not an attractive thing as a rule. But all that is female must become male, apparently.
Women famously don't like abs, yeah. But this is the dumbest clip of all time. I understand that. One, I think he resents having to do this culture war stuff. That's my guess, but he does it for money and views. Two is like, notice just how truly they're specifically mostly focused on people who might have penises, who are transitioning, or people who might be men who are dressing in a way that he considers too feminine, because transphobia and homophobia, rooted in misogyny, rooted in patriarchy, like that is what they are focused on. But again, like people were responding to it, showing videos of Rocky boxing in the crop top. I mentioned the Ezekiel Elliott thing. These are all just little fashion trends that he feels he needs to comment on to reinforce gender, like in the standard of right now, as opposed to the 80s. Or I mean, all of this is just so silly.
But it is, again, for me, the big takeaway about this and why we play these clips is that it is an admission that gender is not fixed. Yes. Because if you say there's a problem, these men are not acting like men, they're not manly because they're wearing like a piece of cloth that you can pick up and put on at any time, then you're admitting that gender is a construct. You just don't like the way it's changing, but you admit that it can change.
Yeah.
That it is a function of society's norms. And once you admit that, you have to admit that a trans woman is a woman.
Yep.
That it is a function, a social construct. And
mediated by things like fashion.
Mediated by fashion and what they wear and what is considered like a womanly or what is considered manly. And the amazing thing about it is they'll do segment after segment after segment, proving, reiterating gender is a social construct. That's why you've got to wear manly clothes. Otherwise, you're not manly.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it undercuts the entire sort of raison d'etre, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know if people watch
their network.
The NBA playoffs this year, but one of the I think the most manliest men who was playing basketball this spring, Jimmy Butler. Here's him in 2019, so ahead of the curve. Look at him trying to turn into
gross.
I don't know if he was trying out for the WNBA here or if what was going on, but I think it was just playing for the Sixers.
Sorry, not hot. I don't appreciate that whatsoever. I mean, it is. I find it offensive that someone has like that level of body fat.
I find it offensive that Ben Shapiro would not want us to see this. Like, it's trying to get men to not do this. I find it actually offensive to people who are.
This is anti-woman.
Yeah, honestly, it is anti-woman. It is. It's anti also anybody that likes men. This is just, I mean, I don't want to talk more about this anyway. Let's keep going. Let's move on.
Like, even like when I was a kid, I didn't have like.
Well, he's Jimmy Butler. I mean, you are not a professional basketball player. Okay.
Just keep it up there.
Take it down. Just relax. Just,
Yeah, Emma,
I
you're
know-
the got hotter in here.
No, everyone's just looking at me. No.
All right, we'll read 10 more of these IMs to get out of here before we all melt. Chibbles. Just on the Obama talk from yesterday's show, I was in Ireland a few months ago, and one of the guides I had informed us that Obama's great-grandfather is from a small Irish town called Moneygall, and that he visited while he was in the country. Around the time of his time in Ireland, a band named Na Fianna put out a song that became fairly popular called There's No One As Irish as Barack Obama. MV, if anyone is in the Salt Lake area, workers at the main city library are trying to unionize. They need people to show up at the library board meeting on Monday to make public comment in support of recognizing the union. There's a rally at 3 p.m. at the library square before the board meeting starts at 4. You can follow SLCPL _ Workers United on Insta for more info. SLCPL _ Workers United on Insta.
Oh yeah. On that note, Half Price Books in Minnesota is also on their second day of a labor action in across their. I'll do some retweets so people can check my Twitter feed if they want to support that.
Judy Giuliani, are there shows or networks we consumers should be avoiding for solidarity? I mean, if you can cancel one or two of your streaming services,
yeah,
not a bad thing to do.
I put that question out yesterday, and I got a few responses that saying like they might be waiting for like a coordinated cutting of the cord, but right. I've done a little bit of that, but yeah.
Because they don't, they're not going to be sitting there going, well, Judy Giuliani, like they still kept, whatever it is, Hulu, but they got rid of Amazon Prime or whatever it is. You can even just like delete the app. They probably are aware of that. Is Andy running through a filter? He has 0 wrinkles and a great hairline. I'm not even gonna dignify that, would they? Eric Cano, if Fran Drescher doesn't fall into crystal healing, she has my vote. Again, Decoding the Gurus did a great job debunking the lab leak theory. Hotez is starting his level up to debating RFK Jr. Omega. Sucks Jimmy never stepped into daylight with that dye because it would show up as blue instead of black. Finisia Herb. Libertarians are smart enough to know there's something wrong with conservatism, but not smart enough to understand why. Northern Spy. British comedian James Acaster has a great set where he takes down challenges Ricky Gervais' transphobic comedy and views. James Acaster. Niall from Trinidad. Emma is turning red.
Yeah, that's true.
Fart Wayne.
Still have Jimmy up.
We're standing strong with Kindler. 3.5 decades of striking would take a crazy toll on a normal human. Hot Carl. It's so hot out today. I saw a grown man walk up to a cop, begging the cop to shoot.
Yikes.
What?
Don't know. Is that a joke? It's not very funny.
It's a bad joke. Weirdo John, someone who works in reality TV, as someone, I'm excited to finally see serious unionization discussions for reality show people starting to gain traction. Yeah.
It's pretty horrendous what early reality television, and even now, like especially the B shows where they aren't as big of stars, what they did to exploit those people.
They took advantage of the last strike, right?
I mean, yes. And that's when Jersey Shore, I think, came out.
Right.
And look into how little they were paid, and they were filmed 24 hours a day, having sex, like being naked.
There's a reason they all have to travel
fighting.
to Fargo and host parties and DJ sets to still make ends meet.
I mean, there's a lot of shows like that.
The dude, I guess Ben has a problem with pro wrestling. Crop top dad bod. From one father to another, Sam, women love dad bobs in a top. Yes. I'll be wearing my top. Irony Man, no more stupid heroes, please. And the final I am of the week. Disco Stew, sorry, but my gaydar is throbbing worse than Ben when he sees men in crop tops.
Gross.
Yep.
Hate the word throbbing.
Sorry about that. Bradley, Matt, have a great job this week. We'll see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get